Good morning. It is a Friday edition of GCR. I'm Glenn, he's Griffin, and if it's Friday, that means our friend Stan the Fan Charles, Chief Grand Poobah here at Pressbox, is in studio with us. Good morning, Stan.
Good morning, guys. Good morning. Reminder that next Friday, it won't mean that.
Yeah, right. It won't mean that, correct. But I got to, you all right? Everything?
Once again, I'm having a recurrence of this. It's not it doesn't feel like a pinched nerve. I've seen my doctor.
All right.
And it stiffens. It's incredibly stiff.
I know a thing or two about neck issues.
Yeah.
They're no fun whatsoever. Well, it's good to see you anyway. A lot to do on a Friday edition of the program. Coming up a little bit later on this morning, Rays color analyst Brian Anderson is going to join us. Since we just kind of dealt with the Rays last week, it's not like we won't talk about them, but we're going to do more of like an AL East conversation with the former MLB pitcher and Rays analyst Brian Anderson. Also, it's a day for the Bryans today, is Brian Baldinger, our buddy from NFL Network, is going to check in with us. In the middle of his weekend last weekend, he just decided to start doing some Lamar Jackson film work, and I love Baldy's breakdowns, and I am fascinated. He was talking about the read option stuff, and I think that a lot of us, how Derrick Henry fits into that and what that does, I think is a major conversation for a lot of us going in. So I want to evolve that conversation when Baldy joins us in a little bit.
Baldy's always very, very insightful.
He's the best, just the best. And we're going to talk some soccer this morning, too. Stan said, I've had enough. I've been coming in and doing this for years, and you never let me talk soccer.
Yep. I want to talk soccer.
We're breaking it down today. We're going to get to the bottom of the Copa America roster. Oh. We're going to talk about the big USA-Colombia friendly down in Landover this weekend. Got a lot of soccer to get to. Stan said, I'm all over it, and so that's what we're doing today. You got to pick for the Euro.
Crystal Palace is coming. I've visited Crystal Palace. It's a beautiful city in England.
It's not a city. Definitely not.
What?
Not a city. I
did visit Wolverhampton, though.
You did?
Oh,
You've been to Wolverhampton,
you
say.
Saw several matches there. I played in a game for Wolverhampton.
Yeah, that's not bad. I'm surprised we're only learning about that now.
They had heard about my work as a goalie in the Blast Celebrity game.
How about that? Yes, coming this summer, Crystal Palace and the Wolverhampton Wanderers will be playing in Annapolis.
Do they do
That's
that?
what they do.
Do they do that there?
I assume. I don't know.
Be a missed opportunity if they don't.
We'll learn more about that match coming up a little bit later on this morning as well. So all that on tap today.
Do we have anything to do with the Whip Snakes today?
No, they lost their opening game. So it's you want to do like the sad? You want to do the sad Whip
There's
Snake?
no such thing as a sad Whip Snake.
No.
Yeah.
Let me hear the Whip Snakes.
No, but when they lose, what do you think it would sound like?
It would sound just the same.
No,
I mean, they are a resilient
you're
bunch,
not doing
the
a good
Whip
bit
Snakes.
here. This is not a good bit. You got to do sad Whip Snake.
They don't. They hardly
You got
lose. So
no. Stop it. You got to do sad Whip Snake.
I only know one.
What
whip
would it
snake.
look like if you
It
did
would
a
be-
sad Whip Snake, Griffin? No, that's not sad. That's not really. All right,
Limp hands.
Limp Whip Snake. I don't know what we're saying there.
No.
That's getting
There's no
uncomfortable.
limp Whip Snakes.
All right. Obviously, speaking of limp, the Orioles come up short yesterday. Although even on a day like that, they end up making it interesting with Ryan O'Hearn hitting a 2-run homer in the ninth inning to cut it back to a 1-run game. There's disappointment, of course, whenever this is the nature of being good. Is whenever you lose, everybody panics because you're good. You're a good baseball team. And the Orioles started off the series so well, then they lost 2 games by a combined 2 runs, but that's the nature of how baseball works. It's still a series split, no matter how close the games are.
No, I didn't look at the standings. Are we 4.5 behind now?
Did the Yankees play yesterday?
Yeah, they won.
They did.
Yeah.
They won 8-5.
Right, then there you go. That's your answer. And the Yankees apparently have no interest in ever losing again, and the only notable part.
Jinx the Orioles by having that never lose ever.
Well, I would prefer if they did.
Would be
do you think the
more
Yankees now are
at WFAN or
Right.
WABC?
Well, do we know yet what the story is on Juan Soto? Because he left the game last night, and that is obviously quite noteworthy. I guess I realized the Yankees did play last night because Juan Soto left the game. And I think that they were going to
You're
get.
hoping that since Soto stopped playing,
But they just stopped the game.
Yeah,
they just
had
canceled it.
They
at
had a
that
rain
point.
delay. Of
They
like
did
an
have a
hour
rain
and 20
rain delay,
or so.
and I believe I saw that they were going to get an update today.
He'll undergo imaging some point today
for
his
what?
forearm soreness.
Did he get hit? He must have been hit by a pitch.
It was a precautionary measure by Boone, although he disclosed that Soto has been bothered by form discomfort for the past week. It wasn't.
Could be then swinging or something.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, forearm tightness, so Juan Soto left the game.
Well, they're due for an injury.
He
they've
did
been remarkably,
well,
aside
other than
from
Garrett Cole, right?
they've been
But they're about to
remarkably-
get Garrett Cole back.
Yeah.
So he apparently did speak to reporters last night. Soto did, so it must not have been
That's
They
serious.
don't think it's
right. Apparently said that he had been feeling, to your point, he'd been feeling forearm tightness for a couple of weeks, but it hadn't impacted his baseball-related activities.
So this week just kind of flew by. I know that the Kyle Bradish status was that they were pushing him back. Initially, it was like we're pushing him back a day.
Yeah, it's not a
Then it
day.
became-
Cole Irvin's pitching tonight.
Right. So then they were, but he hasn't even been announced for tomorrow yet.
They haven't
has he?
announced anything past tonight. So right now it's TBA for Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
You would presume, and I say presume, you can always do this retroactively, but considering the fact that they had to make a roster move, and I know that this just appears to be the way that they feel about Nick Vespi, is they're going to yo-yo him, and
Yeah.
that's going to have to be his lot in life this season.
I'll tell
But-
you who else is falling into that category is Dylan
No, Tate, yeah, I hear you. But consider they had to make a roster move. If they really believed that Kyle Bradish was not going to be available for some time, then it would have seemed easier to just say that's going to be the roster move. I think you can at least read enough into the panic that maybe some people were feeling about this a couple days ago, at least right now, is still unfounded. They don't know that Kyle Bradish is missing time today. If they knew that, they do not like playing man down. Like, they do not like having roster spots that they don't know are being used by
And
guys.
they're not
that-
trying to be cute with this. There's clearly something amiss, and they're being extremely careful with somebody as valuable as Kyle Bradish.
I would presume that if they get to the point where he can't pitch this weekend, then it's at least an IL stint, and then obviously
I
it's
would think so.
a bigger question from there.
Yep.
Of course, they're also slated to get Jorge Mateo back after this weekend. Like, he would be eligible to return after Sunday.
And is Dean Kramer is about ready to
To
go
make
on
a rehab,
early this week?
I
maybe?
believe that's what I believe that's correct.
And I'm guessing he'll do that at Bowie.
Yeah,
guessing.
presumably. That would make sense. So we will see, because then that's going to lead into a couple of the questions that we have to deal with. Because, Stan, I think the Mateo one is the first sort of demarcation for how do we have the Cedric Mullins conversation? Because I said as of last weekend, and I am the biggest Cedric Mullins fan alive. I love Cedric Mullins. But as of last weekend, I had reached the point where I said, there's a breaking point here, and you can't just pretend like there isn't a problem. And to me, it was much about the continued struggles as it was about his body language. Like, his body language just isn't right. Now, in fairness, when he played the other night,
He had two really solid hit balls.
yep, and he drew a walk, and he stole a base,
Yep.
and there were good things that occurred.
Yep.
I don't know. I guess the question becomes, and we did it for Would You Rather Wednesday, but Jorge Mateo returns after Sunday.
Yeah, I think Connor Norby
Just goes back down.
just goes
There's
back
no.
down. Yep, that's what I think.
I think that's. I feel like that's a tough conversation for a lot of people right now.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a very difficult.
I think if Ramon Urias hadn't all of a sudden picked up his level of play, a home run and a couple big hits, and also playing a little bit better. He made a great play.
He made a great play the other night, yes.
I would think that would be the time to sort of cut bait on him. But I still think they feel if they not look. I wrote this in my Sunday night column that went along with my power rankings. That if the Oriole fans, and I wrote this Sunday night, felt that the Yankees were just going to suddenly fall back again, I said, look, it's not as like it used to be 30 years ago when you had to win your division. The Orioles are going to make the playoffs, barring something really crazy.
Utter collapse, right?
Yeah, total collapse, and I don't see that happening. But I said the Yankees feel it looks right now like they are operating on all cylinders, and the Orioles are sort of parceling their roster, like figuring out like how are we going to play Stowers and Kowser and who plays, Urias and Norby, and then the pitching staff they're being cutesy with. They've suffered a couple devastating losses this year in terms of John Means and Tyler Wells being totally they're not happening.
Yep.
They're very fortunate that they had Suarez and Povich, or else they'd really be up, what creek without the paddle. But you get my drift. On Sunday after the game, Brandon Hyde was saying, I'm trying to get a couple guys going. I mean, I know it's not easy just to cut bait with Cedric Mullins. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
And to be fair, they don't need to cut bait with him, right? Like, this is much different than the Ramon Urias conversation, where you don't like doing this to someone who is such an established veteran, but you have options. They are there. Like, it's a bit humiliating for a player of Cedric Mullins' caliber.
But just remember what it looked like for Austin Hayes 25 days ago.
Sure.
It was like, how the hell Colton Cowser was hot as could be, and you're going, boy, this is it for Hayes. I mean, a lot of us thought that somehow he just wasn't going to come back. Players are probably far more resilient than we think they are. Mentally,
I don't doubt that, but part of it is Hayes.
This is a terrible blow.
It's terrible, and it's not like Hayes missed some time, and you could look back and say like, hey, that was a problem, and since he's come back now, we'd still have to acknowledge it. It is very. Hayes looks like a platoon player right now. Like he looks like a guy that outside of Kevin Gausman, for whatever reason, because he's just owned Kevin Gausman in his career.
He's a little bit better than a platoon player.
His numbers His numbers have been dramatic, like about as dramatic a splits as you can have in baseball this season, as far as his production.
This season, but last year in the first half.
In the first half, of course, 100%, of course. Last year in the first half,
he's still the same player. He didn't suddenly get old. Now Cedric Mullins, that's the description a lot of people I talk to. They say it just looks like he got old all of a sudden. Look, I'll tell you one thing that he can still do. When he first established himself as an everyday player, the thing that he did, and it must have been 8 to 10 times, was bunt for base hits. 100%. I'm not saying he gives up on that. He's got too much power to just give up on swinging at the ball. But you lead off an inning.
Right, and he tried the other night. Like, I mean, it's not like it's a weird spot because I don't know that I could agree with he looks old because obviously the speed is very much still there.
Yeah.
Like, it just to me more looks like it's a mental thing is what it, and again, I'm diagnosing someone without having any.
Right.
It just between.
To me, it looks like something mechanically. His swing looks somewhat slower. I just think his reaction.
I thought we had the numbers that he was still swinging fast, and I thought we had seen that in the last couple of weeks that like the swings were still short and fast, and that they were still. I'm in a weird place, but I just don't think you can continue to say day in and day out, well, we hope today is going to be the day that it changes.
But in fairness to Brandon Hyde, I don't think he's taking that approach either. He's playing him very
this
limited.
Week, clearly, there was a change this week. Yeah. I thought after the first two nights that it might be one of those like, hey, let's do what we did with Kimbrel and try to reset for a week.
Right.
Like, let's try to take a week before we do anything dramatic. Let's try to do a reset for a week. Then they ended up putting him in for a game. We'll have to see what it is they end up doing this weekend. Yeah. But I think that the idea of a roster, I think it becomes very difficult. The bigger picture thing that we talked about coming into the season of the old guard versus the new guard.
Yeah.
In a world in which you didn't go out and get Corbin Burns, you could maybe show more commitment to, hey, this season is going to be about the next group of guys coming in and establishing themselves.
Well, what would help to commit to those guys is tell me exactly, other than the 10 days where Colton Cowser looked like a superstar, tell me between him, Stowers, and Kjerstad, which one of them has really looked fantastic to
but
you?
Somebody would say Kjerstad really didn't get any at-bats when he was here this year. Right. Like, that's part of the problem.
But he's been up twice, and he hasn't earned more at-bats. Look, I know the game.
Yeah.
He's gonna certainly be better if he's thrown in playing every day.
Yeah.
But you can't play him every day when he's not producing. at the disposal of Mullins because he's not producing. In other words, I'm just saying that nobody has totally knocked my socks off that they deserve more playing time, a lot more playing time than Cedric.
I understand what you're saying. I guess I would say the only person that's gotten the opportunity to show that, and to your point, hasn't, is Kowser, right? He's the one guy that's been giving the extended, regular playing time.
What you do like about Kowser, though, is the hard hit.
He's definitely hitting the ball hard, and his range. That's been. I really wondered if Kowser could be a center fielder. Yeah. The more you see him play, the more comfortable you are with the idea that if you were to commit to that at some point, he could handle center field. Maybe not the range of Cedric Mullins, but an amount of range that I think you would be comfortable with from a center fielder. So
I'm still not so sure that when push comes to shove, we're looking at Jackson Holiday 2 years from now. There's been a lot
of talk about that recently. I guess I would say if that ultimately, clearly they think that Bradfield will one day be the center fielder. So I guess the question they're having internally is, as much as that. Somebody's going to end up getting dealt, right? It's
not going to be Gunnar Henderson.
It's not going to be Gunnar Henderson, but I think a lot of people have long believed that Norby was the most likely option, right? He was the guy that didn't really have a spot. His hit tool is significant enough that somebody would find him value, and you could probably land something of significance for Connor Norby. If that's the case, then there's no reason that Jackson Holiday can't be their second baseman for some time, with their belief that Bradfield will ultimately be their center fielder. If it's Kjerstad that they see as the trade chip, or whoever it is, Mayo, I can't fathom that, but let's just say that's who they saw as the big trade chip. Well, then, if Norby's going to be your second baseman, then we can have this conversation about Jackson Holiday. I think it would be a difficult thing right now to return Mateo to the. It feels like Norby would be a guy. Why bring him here and not give him an extended look? And not, I just keep feeling like you're doing the bit where you bring a guy up and you say, hey, you're not demanding it. But are you giving them the opportunity outside of Kowser to earn it?
They could have Mike Elias could be working on some smaller level trade that involves Urias. I do think that Urias has enough value that not him alone is going to bring you something of value. But if you're talking about getting an arm that perhaps is more dependable than Dylan Tate, maybe Urias and Chase McDermott, or some trade for a really reliable relief pitcher on a bad team. I think that's a possibility that they could be working on. But in the meantime, I see Norby going back down. I believe me, I'm a Norby fan.
Well, the trade-off being you don't want Mateo to not. Mateo earned the right to play every day, and so if he's going to be playing every day, then what's the point of having Norby here? Is the argument that some would make, and to me, I think you almost have to get into a square peg round hole.
Unless you start playing Mateo again in center, somewhat
correct.
In center field.
Correct. That's the square peg round hole concept.
Like, do you
let Norby have a shot in left field?
Maybe Stowers goes down again, and Norby stays. And Mateo plays a little more center field. I don't know.
That to me is part of the conversation. Is do you consider square peg round holing this for a little bit? And I think you might have to consider some of that.
Yep.
The other thing that comes into the picture this week, of course, is you bring up John Means being sidelined. Now with sort of a little bit of a question about Kyle Bradish. Is the Orioles need 10 days ago? Starting pitching was not something that it was on my sheet of
radar.
The Orioles are going to have to be in the starting pitching market. But suddenly that changed for me. And it was in part the loss of Means. Obviously, the question about Kyle Bradish, which is still going to – anytime someone's dealing with a UCL issue, even if Kyle Bradish comes back and, is able to work through it and go – you're still going to be waiting with bated breath. You're still going to be having –
always be waiting for the other shoe to drop.
And guys get hurt after July 30th. And that, to me, is the bigger part of this conversation.
And they really don't look like there is a pitcher on the horizon. We hope Chase McDermott would really bust through this year as a
He's had some
really
moments.
But his whip is like 157. Yeah. But I see a lot of teams bring up a guy, and because I play fantasy, I go, I haven't heard of this guy. Let me see if I
Right.
can steal him.
Right.
And I look up, and the guy's ERA at AAA is like 6.38, and they're bringing him up to start games.
Well, part of that is because there's so many injuries that teams need pitchers.
Yeah.
I have gone back into they're going to need to acquire a starting pitcher before the trade deadline. Like that's going to have to be a part of the philosophy.
You saw the other day the story broke that the Padres
are interested in Crochet.
I'd be very interested.
Well, who wouldn't be interested in Crochet? But the point, we talked to Eric Kratz about this the other day, and Eric Kratz made a really good point, which is you're going to have a huge innings problem if Crochet's the guy that you go get.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a converted reliever, first time as a starter. He is not going to – you're going to be Grayson Rodriguez plus almost in how you would have to handle that to try to get the innings out of Garrett Crochet just to get through the regular season, more or less the postseason after that. So it doesn't, to me, say you can't go get Garrett Crochet because, of course, he's so talented and would have control for a couple of years. Like, I'm absolutely interested in Garrett Crochet for the likely post-Corbin Burns world of the Baltimore Orioles. But for trying to win a World Series this season, that might be more difficult. I don't know. Look, it's tough to be confident that Eric Fedde is this guy, right? Because there's so much track record that he isn't this guy. I do think that any pitcher that you acquire, you want it to be someone that you have a little bit more control with, simply because, again, you're looking at a world where not only Corbin Burns could be gone next year, but maybe John Means. Even if they were to do like a 2-year Brandon Woodruff type of thing for John Means, he's not likely to be pitching next season either.
I don't think he's going to pitch again for the Orioles.
I wouldn't be surprised by that at all, of course. I don't know if maybe the market depresses so much to a point that the Orioles say, hell, let's talk, let's figure something out.
Right.
But I get it. I completely understand. So with a couple of guys out of the picture, I think you're going to want to acquire a starter that you would have more control over.
Well, Fedde, you do control for one
more
year.
Yeah, an extra year. And that, to me...
And I think he'd also be... I'm not saying he's going to bend over and take it, but, he's a guy you could reasonably say to him, because of how tough his career has been to this point, maybe if you give up... Let's just say it was Kjerstad and Norby to get Fedde and a relief arm.
Kopech.
Okay. I don't think they're going to throw Kopech into that deal. But let's just say let's say a deal was done.
Kjerstad and Norby is a heck of a price.
It is a heck of a price, but Fedde is a guy who I wouldn't make that deal unless you could say to him, "Hey, we'll throw 2 more years, $20 million or $22 million for 2 more years." That's an interesting enticement for a guy who a year ago was pitching in Japan or Korea.
I don't know how confident I am in Fedde that I want to even give him the 2 more. That's part of the problem with the conversation, is I feel like part of what makes Fedde somewhat.
Well, you and I aren't Mike Elias and
100%
Sig and the Scouts. I've been very impressed with the way he's pitched.
I've been impressed by it too.
Kicking myself because I didn't.
Way to go! Yeah. You screwed it all up.
Yeah.
I think part of my Fedde interest is that I don't think the price would be as significant as obviously the price would be for Garrett Crochet, right? Like, that here you could get a guy that could help right now, and you probably wouldn't have to pay.
Yeah, I mean, Norby and Kjerstad's not a realistic.
Yeah, that's a lot, right?
I was actually thinking of that for Crochet.
For Crochet, yes.
But I was actually respecting your opinion that you're right about him in the innings this year.
It's a tough thing, because I'm still not telling you I'm out on Crochet, because my God, he's so good that, like, I want to have that conversation.
But you look at Luis Gil.
Yeah.
The Yankees are bumping up when Cole gets back and Clark Schmidt gets back. They're bumping up against innings with Gill because he's a TJ surgery guy, that missed all of last year.
But when they get those guys back, they might have the depth to say,
no, they might.
Yeah,
right.
we're going to sit. We're going to do. We've got a strategy for Hill.
But it's the same type of thing that they. First of all, he's leading that team. I think in innings.
He's been brilliant. I mean, it's unbelievable how good he's been.
I think his whip is 0.39.
Is it really?
Because I'm working on a story for the June paper measuring the Oriole arms versus the Phillies, the Yankees, and Seattle.
His whip is .92.
All right.
It's .92. Somebody
Maybe it's like in.
I'll tell you who it is. It's
Or like the
Ranger.
last
It's
month.
Ranger Suarez.
Well, Ranger Suarez has been
yeah.
bonkers.
It might be the last month. I mean, he is allowed. Like,
what
he's
about
gone-
what about Scooball? What's Tariq Scooball's whip?
I guess I should just pull up the.
I'll give this away. So we got to do some baseball betting stuff for the next print issue of Press Box.
0.88 for Scooble.
0.88. Jesus Christ.
What was the other one you wanted?
Suarez, yeah, Ranger Suarez, who's been
Well, how about if I tell you that all the
0.8.
top
0.8 for Ranger
the
Suarez?
top three starters for the Phillies,
Oh,
they're all
That's
in the
nuts.
zeros. I mean, it's
Nuts.
unbelievable. There's a reason that they're as good as they are.
I mean, and
Wheeler's
look,
0.97.
yeah, Wheeler, Nola, and Suarez, who are we all know they're very good pitchers.
And then they have Sanchez,
Turnbull, yeah.
and Tejon Walker, who's having not a good year, but I have some faith that he can put a streak together.
All right. We come back in. We're going to talk some football. Brian Baldinger is going to join us. We'll get some Ravens thoughts. Today's show, speaking of the print issue, just because, there it is right there, final days. Do you want to make the announcement today since you're not going to be here next Friday for the next print issue?
Yeah. Glenn and I had a chance after Press Box set a precedent of having Governor
By the way,
Ehrlich.
go get this one before it's gone.
We had a chat with Governor Ehrlich many moons ago when we first started. He was probably in our first 10 weekly issues of Press Box back in 2006. We had Governor Ehrlich on, and then in short order, when Martin O'Malley became governor, we had Martin O'Malley on. For some reason, Larry Hogan and us could never get together over 8 years, Larry. But we had a chance to sit down with Governor Wes Moore that Glenn set up through his contacts with the Moore administration, and it was a very interesting chat.
Yeah, a sports conversation. It's just to be clear, we're not suddenly diving into the world of politics. We had a sports conversation, but where sports meets politics. Obviously, the lease issue with the Orioles, the future of horse racing in the state of Maryland.
And you led the way with a really great question that got him talking about his days as a player at Hopkins and what he learned
leadership-wise from coaches that has
including the late Jim Margaret.
Correct. Now as a leader himself. Of course, for those that don't know, he did play. He actually was recruited to Hopkins to play basketball, Wes Moore, but an injury derailed his basketball, but actually led him to switch, having never played. He ended up playing collegiate football instead as a wide receiver, and was a captain for Johns Hopkins. So,
without giving away too much of it, I thought his answer when he said that the coaches, I forget whether it was Jim Margaret.
He was a wide receiver coach.
No, we're the wide receiver that specifically, though, said, you're never going to learn football to more than the guys that have played football for 8 years already, from Pee Wee all the way up. You're never going to do that. But what you can do is outwork them. And that was really an enlightening conversation.
So that'll be the cover of our next Press Box, which will be available mid-month. Governor Wes Moore on the cover, talking sports with us. Brian,
I think it's going to come out the day my late mom's birthday.
What day?
June 17th.
June 17th.
I think it's coming out.
Wonderful. All right. Brian Baldinger next. Glenn Clark Radio.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin, and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Grayson Rodriguez, talking to people who have been part of his path as the Orioles hope he'll become their next homegrown ace. Also inside, we remember legendary Maryland basketball coach Lefty Driesell with stories from legends like Roy Williams and Bobby Cremins about what it was like to go up against the old left-hander. Press Box is available at over 500 locations around Baltimore, including 60 Royal Farm stores. You can also find the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
One of the things that's definitely wrong with this country is that this dude still has a job somehow, some way. Glenn Clark.
All right, back in here on GCR. Stan the Fan Charles is in studio with us on a Friday edition of the program. Orioles open up a 4-game set in Tampa starting tonight. Of course, as I talked about yesterday, the absolute insanity of the idea that they're playing a night game on Monday on getaway day is bonkers. Playing a Sunday afternoon and then Monday night game in the same city, in the same series, should never happen. We need a congressional investigation into it. We need to get to the bottom of it. It should not be a thing ever, ever, ever. But that's conversation for another day. We do know Cole Irvin will start game 1 of the 4-game set tonight against Aaron Savale. We'll go for Tampa to open up the series, and then Tampa's got Taj Bradley and Zach Littell lined up for the next 2 days. The Orioles right now have TBAs. Presumably they're just waiting to see where Kyle Bradish is and if they can get Kyle Bradish in this weekend. So that's the reality for this weekend. Of course, Boston wins game 1 of the NBA Finals last night. It was a weird game in that it just was an utter blow. They were up by 30, and then all of a sudden in the third quarter,
8 points.
I had given up on the game.
Right.
And then I think Mrs. Clark and I started watching MasterChef. And then all of a sudden I looked down at the phone and I'm like, does that say they're back within 13? What the hell?
It got as low as 8
Yeah,
points.
and then I turned it on and it got back within 8. And I'm like, okay, I can watch some. And then the moment they got back within 8.
How did Mrs. Clark take that? That you just dumped her?
No, it worked out. It was as MasterChef was finishing, I looked at the phone and I was like, oh, good news. We can put the basketball back on. I'm back in. And then I swear, as soon as I turned it on, it was 9.
Right.
It was 9 when I turned it on.
It was 17.
And then it was all of a sudden, I think it was 20 by the time. I was
they
like, well.
scored about 12 or 13 points.
And I just said, well, okay, that's how that's going to go. No more basketball for me. So the Celtics take a 1-0 series lead in the NBA Finals. Let's talk some football right now. This man spent part of his weekend last weekend doing some Baldy's breakdown work on Lamar Jackson, and he sort of called it Academy football-like way that they run some of the RPOs. Joining us now here on GCR from the NFL Network, he is our friend Brian Baldinger, and he's back with us. Baldy, it's Glenn, and Stan the Fan Charles is in studio with me today. Thank you, as always, taking the time for us.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Great to chat with you. Brian, look, everything that the Ravens have done with Lamar Jackson has been so exciting. I think in watching that video that you did last week, it's a reminder to me of how compelling the idea of adding Derrick Henry to this really is, and what this really could mean for the Ravens offense in terms of teams that have to be aware of Derrick Henry and have to try to stack the box somehow, and yet Now we see a leaner Lamar Jackson who, after gaining weight last year, dropped some of that weight this year, maybe more inclined to try to go to the outside as teams try to pack it in against Derrick Henry. How dynamic truly could this be with that combination in the backfield?
Well, it could be really dynamic. I mean, Lamar's never played with a running back like Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry's never played with a quarterback like Lamar. And then if you add in all of the wrinkles that Todd Monken adds to this run game that he does, which basically your defense isn't allowed to be right. And if they execute the way they're capable of, this could be really something special. We know they're going to run it more than they throw it. And if you get the lead in the fourth quarter, it's going to be very difficult to stop it.
Brian, I've had this thought that, we heard Todd Monken a couple weeks ago suggest the idea of, Derrick Henry could get 300 carries. And, I don't know what the plan is, but I've wondered aloud if it's not really like the idea that this is going to be a Derrick Henry-based offense necessarily until later on in the season. I've wondered and talked to some folks over there about, is the story about having it be Derrick Henry, or is it more Derrick Henry's our running back, and then when we get to December and January, that's when we want to be playing more like Derrick Henry-driven football? Do you think there's a chance that this is more about the end of the season than it is about the total of 17 games?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I understand your point, but, I mean, each game is so independent of any other game. Obviously they would have liked to run the ball better and more frequently than they did against Kansas City, especially the way the defense played in the second half of that game. Maybe that would have been the difference. Maybe Derrick Henry is the difference, getting past Kansas City. But 300 carries seems a lot when you have Lamar,
right,
who's going to get his share, whether it's designed runs or scrambles. Keaton Mitchell certainly showed the league in, three games or so. Like, he's a dangerous player. And Justice Hill has, earned a spot on this football team in his kind of spot role. But, I mean, look, Derrick Henry, he's, between 250 and 300 carries. He's going to leave his mark. He's going to make an impact for sure.
Brian, first of all, good to talk to you after so long. Used to have you on our show a lot in the late 90s, early 2000s. Quick question about that running against Kansas City. Wasn't that more a coach's decision than game-driven? I mean, it mystified a lot of us that other than Lamar Jackson's runs, they only ran the ball 6 times, I think.
Yeah, I think it mystified the owner.
Yeah.
It mystified a lot of Raven fans and some owners and probably a whole bunch of other people, inside that organization. It was just a head scratcher, honestly. They just got away from it, and it's not who they are. It's not what they did to get to the number 1 seed. And so, it's something they have to live with, and you have to make sure that if they get to that spot again, they don't fall prey to something like that again.
So let me ask you the 8,000 pound elephant in the room question. Doesn't it boil down at some point to whether Lamar Jackson can be more accurate with his long passes?
I don't know. I mean, look, everybody wants to have a higher completion percentage of balls down the field. It's just a low. I mean, some of these throws down the field are low percentage. He had Zay Flowers on a big play in that game, kind of a scramble drill type thing. But they broke a big play on that.
Yep.
Look, if the ball doesn't get knocked out of the hands at the goal line, who knows what happens in that game? So I mean, they were in it all the way to the very end. And look, Kyle Hamilton can't cover Travis Kelce any better than he did in the opening touchdown. It's just the greatness of Mahomes and Kelce that made that play.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that you have to take away from that game, saying they're the Ravens. They're going to be back here this year. They've got to find ways to, get over the hump. They put away in the second. They played a great second half against Kansas City. It wasn't enough. And they know that. And I'm sure that that's left a bad taste in their mouth all off season.
Brian Baldinger is with us here on GCR. Baldy, there is some concern. The Ravens were much deeper at wide receiver a year ago than they had ever been before. They lose Odell Beckham. They don't draft a receiver until the 4th round. And, I like Tez Walker. We'll see what he might be able to add early. But I feel like some of the conversation about the less depth is mitigated by the excitement about what we saw from Isaiah Likely a year ago and the idea of Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews both being on the field together. I don't know how you felt, but it genuinely looked to me like Isaiah Likely was turning into a star in this league when we saw him a season ago. How much can they mitigate what they might not have at receiver with that duo and finding ways to use them together on the field this season?
Oh, I think there'll be in a lot of 2 tight end sets for sure. I mean, Isaiah really stepped up, and so I think that's, that was apparent to everybody, and so I think that will continue. But, Zay Flowers was their number 1 receiver. They haven't had a number 1 wide receiver in a long, long time. And he stepped into that role, and he flourished. And I think normally players make the biggest jump between the first and second year. And I think Zay will do that. Rashad Bateman. They're still a run-first team. I think they've got plenty. I think they've got plenty to work with. And, we'll see what Tez does. He was a dynamic player at North Carolina. Probably would have been drafted higher if he had come out a year earlier. But regardless, I think they're kind of stacked and stocked pretty well at those positions. But there's no question the 2 tight end sets are going to be a big part of this offense.
Baldy, a lot made about the fact that they've got to replace 3 of their 5 starting offensive linemen from a year ago. And that when you say it out loud, it just seems a lot. It seems quite daunting. Yet, I think if we talk about things that we trust this organization to do over the years, finding offensive linemen and scouting and developing them would be pretty high on that list. How confident are you in their ability to do that and to handle such significant turnover along the offensive line in one offseason?
Well, honestly, Glenn, they replace offensive linemen the way Walmart stocks shelves. Andrew Voorhees was drafted last year in the 7th round coming off an ACL. He's going to step in.
They pay higher rates than Walmart.
Yeah, they do. But Ben Cleveland's there. Rosengart was drafted to replace Morgan Moses. Maybe Falele is there. Maybe Rosengart beats him out. I don't know. Like Stanley goes down and Macari steps in. Look, their best pick that they've had was Tyler Linderbaum. He's a great player.
Yeah.
And I think when your center is strong, it makes everybody else better. But, just the way that they utilize, various pieces. I think the offensive line, and look, Simpson was really good, and Zeitler was, I don't know if he missed a snap in the years that he was there.
I don't think he gave up a sack either the entire time.
I don't know if he missed a practice. The guy was just he was just unbelievable in what he did. And, he'll probably do the same thing. Regardless, I think they're going to be in pretty good shape. They got a good offensive line coach. They know how to coach that position. They do things in a run game nobody else does. They're still going to be difficult to stop. I think they're going to be pretty good.
Baldy, I'm wondering, in all your film study, have you seen Rosengarten play a good bit when you were doing draft prep and stuff like that?
Sure. Oh, yeah.
What kind of
good
play?
Prospect. You go out there to – well, all the attention went to the left tackle.
Right.
And probably rightfully so. Pittsburgh took him, and he was an elite player, Fontenot. And so they kind of got overshadowed a little bit. That will happen.
Yep.
But, that was the best deep ball passing offense in all of college football. And nobody was close to what Michael Penix did. And you needed offensive linemen that could, pass block for a long time to get these, you watch him against University of Texas, you watch him in big games against Oregon. Like, he stood out. And that offensive line had to hold their blocks a long time. Michael Penix, the guy is a dynamic athlete, but primarily he stayed in the pocket and made his throws from the pocket. And so you got a lot of really good plays, a lot of good games where you got a chance to see Fontenot and Rosengarten and their center all have to stand in there and really pass protect a lot longer than most college programs did. So and he's got good size on him. I thought he was drafted in the right place. Like, I don't know if you're going to plug and play him yet. We'll see how he holds up, through training camp and in all of the preseason games. But I think they're going to give him a good long look to see if he can win that starting right tackle job.
The idea that he played right tackle for a left-handed quarterback, there is still questions, obviously, about Ronnie Stanley's long-term future here in Baltimore. Do you think there's a chance that experience could translate to him being a left tackle in the future?
You never know. I mean, everybody sort of, wants to ask that question about guys that only played right tackle. Can you go to left tackle? They want to know that about Fuaga, coming out of Oregon State. But not everybody can transfer. Like, I remember just last year, Tristan Wirfs, an all-pro right tackle, had to learn and go over to left tackle. And he was telling me how difficult it was. In fact, he said he was, eating food with chopsticks and putting them in his left hand to see if he could get the food to his mouth. Like, he was kind of retraining his brain, And no, he made it successful, but by no means, for a guy that was an all-pro right tackle, was it easy for him to go to left tackle. So not everybody can do it. Some people are a little bit better at it than others, but it's, you cross-train these guys, I would imagine. You'll cross-train Roger a little bit and see if he can handle that for sure.
Brian Baldinger, of course, as always, you can follow him on Twitter at BaldyNFL. Brian, what do you have coming up in the next few days? I know you're doing off-season training activity tour, OTA tours recently.
Well, I just got on 495 here. I'm an hour away from going to see Dan Quinn in Washington.
Okay.
So they invited me down to go watch practice today. And I'll be I hope to be at the Ravens practice next Thursday and the Giants Wednesday and the Jets on Tuesday next week.
Nice.
Hey, be aware, Baldy, that the traffic is insane since the bridge collapsed.
Brutal,
it really is.
Brutal. It really is awful. Baldy, thank you as always. Really appreciate you hopping on with us this morning.
Yep.
Look forward to chatting more as we get closer to the start of the season.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Yeah, my pleasure, guys. Good to be with you. Thank you.
Brian Baldinger, NFL Network, with us here on
Forgot
GCR.
how good he is.
Nice. Yeah. He's a pro, and he's one of the nicest guys in the business, and always appreciate him taking the time
Back
for
in
us.
those days when I used to have him on, didn't like you.
Really?
No.
He told you that?
Yeah. Oh, God.
Well, that's awkward.
If it would have been situations where we had to tape interviews
You
with
think
him,
this is a Tirico thing?
It's a very similar.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That is so weird because he's come on with me a lot over the years.
He's a very good actor.
Wow. Well, you know what? That makes sense, actually. The more I think about it, it makes a lot of sense.
Can you connect the dots now?
Yeah, I can. I can connect the dots. I saw a story. The Ravens are bringing in one of the more productive UFL. Is that the league? The UFL? It was called the UFL.
Yes.
One of the guys who was one of the most productive pass rushers in that league this season is getting a visit with the Ravens next week. Yes. I don't remember the name. Look that up. It was all over Twitter yesterday. Look, man, I don't think there's any world where somebody can go from being a productive pass rusher in the UFL to somehow being an 8 to 10 sack guy in the NFL the following season. But with that said, once upon a time, Cameron Wake was discovered out of the CFL. Like, it's not as if there's no reason for a team that has
Malik Fisher.
That's his name, Malik Fisher. Do we know anything about him? Like where he?
Villanova.
Okay, so he's probably maybe he's got a relationship with Kadir Ismail.
Probably got a win over Towson under his belt, so
might have one of those.
To Carrie Fisher?
Any
chance?
I don't
just
know.
looking at the picture of him, I don't think so.
Okay.
Would be the second Malik to be thrown into the pass edge rush room behind Baltimore's own Malik Ham at that point.
No.
I'm not.
By the way, it could have been adopted by Carrie Fisher.
Thinking about that, right? Yeah. What do you know? What do you know? Or maybe he's what's Carrie Fisher's daughter's name? Who's also an actress? Oh my God. Ela Fisher.
That sounds right.
Right? Is that her name? Ela? And
no. Yeah, is that right? That might be right.
Am I right about this? I've got because who's the girl from the girl from The Office?
Jenna Fisher.
Jenna Fisher. That's her.
I thought it was spelled differently because there's a C.
Yeah, I
in
think.
Jenna
is there?
I think she's Jenna Fisher's Fischer.
Mm-hmm.
So is Ela Fisher related? No, Ela Fisher's Fisher.
Learn more about Malik Fisher or
you work on Malik Fisher. I'm going to work on Carrie Fisher and Ela Fisher. And
Carrie Fisher was married to Paul Simon.
I don't think I remembered that.
Yeah. I just saw the Paul Simon documentary. It was
Hang on a
great.
Second. Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, 2-part documentary.
Yeah, it's definitely not Carrie Fisher's daughter. Carrie Fisher's daughter is is an actress, but her name is Billie Lourd.
Oh my gosh, his mom's name is Sherry Fisher.
Ah, so close.
Yeah, so close.
So
Not-
close.
Does she know Stormy? Does she know Stormy Daniels?
I don't know.
I hope not.
How did we get there?
I know. Like,
What? Now you tell me how to connect those
everything
dots.
comes back. It's
All
like
right.
Kevin Bacon.
So who is Jenna Fisher related to? Is she related to anybody, or is she just on her own?
She's the daughter of Pat Fisher.
There
who
you
used to
go.
play cornerback for the Washington
she
Redskins.
does have a couple losses to toss under his belt as well. So.
Carrie Fisher was Debbie Reynolds' daughter.
Yes, I did know that.
And Debbie Reynolds was married to Eddie Fisher. I used to have such a crush on Debbie Reynolds. And get a load of this. Eddie Fisher, when he was married to Debbie Reynolds, he was the cousin of somebody that lived like 4 doors down from me on Gist Avenue.
Well, that's kind of cool.
And I thought, maybe I'll get to meet Debbie Reynolds.
All right, there is no apparent connection between Carrie Fisher, Ela Fisher,
Or
Jenna Fisher.
Okay.
I've got nothing. Maybe
Nor Sherry Fisher, we don't think.
Or Malik Fisher,
Or
right?
Malik,
Yeah.
yeah.
To our knowledge, we're striking out here. Just a lot of fishers. That's what they always say. There's a lot of fishers in the sea. That's what
happens when you go
they're
fishing.
always
Sometimes
saying
you
that.
don't catch it.
All right. Thanks again to Baldy. Appreciate him taking it.
A lot of fishers in the sea.
That's what they say, right? Isn't
they
that?
always say that.
It's always another fisher in the sea.
Did you see that story yesterday about scientists? It's like a 1 in a billion chance. They have video of a shark throwing up something. It had eaten.
Oh.
It had eaten something called like an iroid or something like that. It's like a on the ground porcupine, but that does swim, and it ate it, and it then and the thing was dead. He didn't survive the vomiting, but he threw the whole thing up. It's an amazing story.
I remember a story from a couple years ago about a guy off the Cape who, I don't think it was a shark. I think it might have been but was swallowed by a whale or something like that, and then got spit back up and survived.
That sounds like he made that up.
Oh, no. I mean, he had terrible, he broke lots of bones in the
Really?
process. Yeah. He was a diver off the Cape and went through.
Lucky he didn't taste better.
Yeah, right? Then it'd be a really bad day for him.
I would really be in trouble.
Yeah, you would be.
You saw me last week at the car wash.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I feel like there was I just wanted to finish the thought of Malik Fisher. The thought of Malik Fisher is, I am okay with trying to overturn every stone. But you have a need in that area. There's nothing that you're going to be confident about going into the season. So you're hoping that, Kyle Van Noy can replicate the season he had a year ago. You're hoping that Odafe Owe could take another step up. You're hoping David Ajabo could finally become the guy that you believe was a first-round talent. And you're hoping that maybe Malik Ham's ready to jump in and help out. And you're hoping that Adisa Isaac, a third-round pick, you're going to have to throw numbers. It's going to have to be quantity over quality. The quality's out of you can't go get the quality anymore. That's no longer available. So you got to throw quantity at it. By all means, keep throwing. That's what worked a year ago. You threw quantity at it, and you ended up finding quality in Jadeveon Clowney. Keep throwing quantity at it, and that's all you can do at this point.
Eric DaCosta has a great relation with Sig Mejdal.
Yes, correct.
Maybe they could throw Kjerstad and
you think that maybe that could end up being – who do the Ravens have that's going to help the Orioles pitching-wise? Who do they have?
No. I meant we could use Oriole players to go trade for an
edge rusher. You're saying just okay.
Yeah.
So we trade Connor Norby to
what city has an abundance of edge rushers?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That also has
think
a
about
baseball
that
team.
for a second.
Yeah, let me spend some time with
TJ
this
Watt
one.
back
Right
for Norby and Kjerstad, and then they just play for the Pirates.
And the Pirates would be scary at some point.
Yeah,
but they're in the NL. They're in the National
That's a
League.
good point. We don't have to worry about them. Have to worry about how good is Nick Gonzalez, by the way.
Yeah, I'm going to get my fantasy matchup. I'm going against him. I texted my friend this morning. I was like, "Who the heck is this guy, and why is he on your team?"
He was in the mix. I don't remember what year.
He was
the
a round
draft.
one pick.
He was when he was an early pick, and he was somebody that we had heard some. I think the Orioles maybe had met with, or they had a conversation with. Must have been 2020 because he definitely was on this program because we had been told that they had some conversation with Nick Gonzalez. So. It's not stunning that he's off to such a great start, but, like, man, he has been on top of everything else they have going on in Pittsburgh. Nick Gonzalez looks like the real deal, man. Nice player. Of course, so does Joey Ortiz. Joey Ortiz has been a monster as well for Milwaukee this season, but, we all knew that was part of the deal. You got Corbin Burns out of it. That's the way it works. You had to pay a price. You got Corbin Burns.
Get TJY out of it, worth it.
100%. That's where we are.
How's that DL Hall?
Not that part of it is not going well for Milwaukee because they just don't seem to get it. But
is he back yet from the IL?
I don't know if he's back yet or not, but it was not going well.
Yeah.
But it has gone.
No, it was horrible.
Yeah, it has gone. It has gone very well for Joey Ortiz, though. He has been outstanding.
Yeah, he's been very good. They're very happy with him.
They can't find a spot for him in the lineup though. Like one day he'll lead off, the next day he'll bat eighth. I'm not sure what they're like trying to do. I mean, I guess it's working. They're winning games.
I don't think they're going to sign Adames after. I think
he'll probably be traded, and then that'll be his spot.
Although they do have, I mean, they're right there.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
they're very good.
What?
Oh, he's looking at apparently his knee is still bothering him. He met with Dr. Neil Elitrosh earlier this week.
I hate when that happens.
You've met with him, the Dr. Elitrosh.
But he want to be back over the years.
When I played for Crystal Palace.
Well, you were a Wolf. I thought you were a Palace.
It was both.
Do you remember? I don't know if you have any recollection of this at all. There was a minute, like 12 to 15 years ago, when Crystal Palace established an American team. They played at UMBC.
I do remember
Crystal
that.
Palace USA was the name of the team.
It was like a farm team.
I don't remember exactly what I don't even remember how it worked, but like it was owned by Crystal Palace, and then maybe that there was a story about this a couple years ago, and it ended up being like there was some malfeasance involved. Like I think maybe Crystal Palace broke off their ties, but the
laundering money.
Well, I think the people that were running Crystal Palace USA maybe pretended like that didn't happen, like just kept operating as though they were still associated with Crystal Palace.
Right, and there was no
and there was no money, and there was no, and the guys weren't getting.
I vaguely remember that.
I wish I could remember all the details, and there might be somebody that was involved with it that's like, dude, you're butchering this story. But I remember there being some.
There definitely was a.
There was the Crystal Palace USA was 100% the name of a soccer team, and they were at one point associated with Crystal Palace. That was a thing. I just don't remember all the details after that. All right, hour number one, winding down. Today's show brought to you by, you know what? And how about just a reminder, you and Eric Garfield were back in action yesterday.
We were back in action talking about the most recent Major League debuts of players coming up through the system. We talked at some length about Connor Norby and one Cade Povich, and then took a deeper look on how Jackson Holliday's season is progressing, and talked a little bit about Kobe Mayo and Heston Kjerstad.
You can, of course, find that right now, Facebook.com/PressBoxSports, in YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline, PressBoxOnline.com/video, and Stan, Ross, and Luke back in action on Monday.
And by the way, there will be no show with me and Eric next Thursday because I'll be at this destination wedding. We also talked about the fact that the Florida Complex League, at one time 4-12, now 12-12. They've won 8.
There you go.
Don't start watching them. Because
That's true.
the second you start watching
I'll curse it 100%. All right, coming up in the 11 a.m. hour, we're going to talk some AL East. Brian Anderson, Rays color analyst, is going to check in with us. Orioles and Rays getting ready for a 4-game set in St. Pete. That's on the way. It's Glenn Clark Radio.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Discover one of Baltimore's hidden gems at Guilford Hall Brewery. Enjoy dinner in our spacious brew pub, sip a signature cocktail in our outdoor dog-friendly beer garden, or take a tour of our brewery. Discover your new favorite local craft beer. From crisp lagers to hoppy ales, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Pair your brew with delicious appetizers and entrees. There are options for the whole family, but you have to try our fan-favorite giant pretzel. Guilford Hall Brewery, where every sip is a celebration. Visit us online at guilfordhall.com.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, Luke Jackson profiles Grayson Rodriguez, talking to people who have been part of his path as the Orioles hope he'll become their next homegrown ace. Also inside, we remember legendary Maryland basketball coach Lefty Drizel with stories from legends like Roy Williams and Bobby Cremins about what it was like to go up against the old left-hander. Press Box is available at over 500 locations around Baltimore, including 60 Royal Farm stores. You can also find the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Contrary to what some people believe, I actually like this guy when he sleeps. Glenn Clark, talking sports.
There's an interesting comment from Justin Tucker in Owings Mills yesterday out at Ravens OTAs where he said that they've been doing the research about the new kickoff rule, and apparently in the XFL, kickers were involved in 25% of the tackles on this new kickoff rule that the NFL is implementing this season. And so because of that, he was bulking up. He joked, "This might be really surprising to a lot of you guys and a lot of my teammates because I don't hang out in the weight room too frequently. And now I got to get some more shrugs, get the traps going a little bit, just to make sure I'm prepared for a little bit more contact." In his typical Justin Tucker way, he was, of course, having fun and making a joke about it. But what we had heard, is it the Chiefs that said they're considering using Eric Reed on kickoffs because of this?
You mean to actually do the kickoff? To actually
kick the ball. That they are considering using a non-kicker because the kickers
too valuable, yeah.
Well, and the kickers have been involved in the tackles. They want it to be someone that can get downfield.
That's really
and
a weird.
There's so much about this new kickoff rule. I'm convinced the first thing it's going to be is that if it stays, the coaches are going to demand a couple more players on their roster.
I would think
moving forward.
I feel like they might even do it. Do you think they'll do it before the season starts?
I don't know if they'll do it before the season starts.
How quickly are they able to install that
bargain
rule?
something and figure out what that looks like economically? Maybe it's a game day thing where they're allowed. They could say, hey, you can't put them on the roster, but we'll allow you 2 more on game day. I don't know. But I really do believe that if they're going to keep this kickoff in play,
the third quarterback rule,
something like that.
Well,
this is a special team.
What was the push behind this new rule this time?
That it would get kickoffs would be a thing, returns would be a thing again. The idea is they got what they wanted out of the
less injuries.
Correct. That's what they wanted. But the trade-off was because there were no kickoff returns.
Right.
They don't think that's it. They don't ever think it's a good thing.
That's a good thing for football.
This is like why they moved the extra point. They don't like any dead play.
Right.
Advertisers don't like dead plays. They don't like any play where I don't need to come back. I don't need to come back from the bathroom.
Right.
I don't need to come back from the kitchen because it's just going to be the kickoff. It's just going to be the extra point. They want everything to be action or potential action, and you feel like you have to be back. So you can't get up and walk away during commercials. You got to stay because there's going to be an action play on the other side of the commercial.
How about if the owners started to kick?
I don't know.
Or somebody like Sashi Brown.
Sashi Brown has to go out and handle it. I don't know.
The
if that's
team presidents, not the owners.
Right. I think there's going to be a lot that we're going to learn about this. And as I said, the people that I've talked to have told me you need leverage guys, not speed guys, for the new kickoff. And it will be interesting to see if there are other teams that consider this option of it not being a kicker. I think there are very few teams that have. Was it Chad Ochocinco famously could kick? I don't know how many guys per team were like high school. Remember, a lot of your high school kickers were just the best athlete on the team. Whoever the best in a certain era. Maybe most of these guys played it in an era where specialism was already in place and like you already had truly defined kickers. But some of these guys, 1,000%, were also the kicker for their high school football team, because for so many high school football teams, it's just who's your best athlete. Okay, they can kick too. Great, get them out there and let them kick. So some of these guys have kicking in their background, in their history, and if you've got a guy on your roster that can be your fifth safety, special teamer / could kick the ball, then it'll be interesting to see how many of these teams consider using those guys in that role.
See how Sanusi Kane kicks the football, and
yeah, I don't know if there's any.
Or Bo Braid,
right?
Somebody,
100%. That might be your path to getting on the roster. Is can you also kick at this point? But that was an interesting note from Justin Tucker yesterday out in Owings Mills. There was one other thing I wanted to get to. Oh, we saw that they did officially postpone the Tyson thing to November, so they are trying to do it. But the entire card has been pushed back to November 15th.
This is the Mike Tyson
The Mike
fight?
Tyson, Jake Paul. I don't like using the word fight because...
What are they doing then?
Thank you.
Rumbling. Rumbling.
They are still doing it at the Cowboy Stadium. They're pushing it back to November 15th because of Mike Tyson's... it was related to an ulcer, apparently, this medical emergency that he had.
I mean, I think you're right. Mike Tyson shouldn't be fighting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Whatever.
But if they want to do it with Nate Diaz, it's Aaron Till.
Yeah, you can enjoy that. I'll let you enjoy that.
What if they make Jake fight Logan?
I don't care. I have no interest.
You would watch.
No.
Yeah,
I
you
wouldn't
would.
watch in a second.
When you're scrolling on Twitter and you see the highlight.
Griffin were fighting Mike Tyson?
No. Well, I don't know. If he invited me, maybe. Like, if he invited me, put me up for the weekend. Like
Keep me in my corner?
I'd be in the corner.
Do you know
what I would do?
Hang on a second.
My first thing I would tell you to do was to do the whip snakes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Do you guys know that I actually once walked a former heavyweight champion of the world to the ring?
No.
As part of their ring? This is a straight shoot.
Yeah.
I was once part of the ring walk for a former heavyweight champion of the world. Straight
Hasim
shoot.
Rockman?
Not Hasim Rockman.
Francis?
Who was it?
The great Tommy Morrison. The late, great Tommy Morrison. Tommy Gunn himself, the star of the Rocky movie that we don't talk about. Tommy Morrison, after he had been, gone through his diagnosis, his HIV, the whole thing, attempted to come back to fighting. And Tommy lived in Scottsdale when I worked in Phoenix. And the week that the sixth Rocky movie, the Rocky Balboa movie, came out, we decided to turn the show into a Rocky week, a Rocky-themed week. And we had Talia Shire on, and we had we had like everybody on. And we reached out to Tommy Morrison because we heard he lived in Phoenix, and he came in and he spent like the entire night in studio with us. And we developed a friendship. And he got a fight, but it was hinky in hindsight.
Right.
What they basically did was, in order to get around laws, they let him fight on an Indian reservation where the Athletic Commission had no governance over the fight. It was a mixed martial arts card on a reservation. They announced this, and people really believed that Tommy was going to be like doing a mixed martial arts fight. There was never a thought that was going to be happening, but they didn't announce it until right as like we walked to the ring. They were like, "By the way, this particular fight will be striking only," and then there was maybe it was ugly.
Colton Cowser was in the room.
Yeah,
well, good thing you were there to walk him out. You were defending him a little bit.
They asked me if I would come to the fight, and it was I think 3 hours outside of Phoenix. I'm like, yeah, of course, I'd love to. They put me up at this casino, the whole thing.
Cool.
And then I'm waiting in the tent because this is how low rent it was. There was no like backstage
Were there
area.
hookers involved?
No, not that I know of. There was just a tent that like all the fighters would come into. That was where they could hang out. So Tommy never left his room. Like he was in his room the whole time. So I call his girlfriend. I'm like, hey, Tommy's good. Everybody's. Because they were starting to get people like, dude, is he even here? Like, is this happening? Right. She's like, oh, yeah, we're in the room if you want to come up. I'm like, okay. So I go up to the room. She's like, walk with us. And I'm like, what do you mean with us? She's like, yeah, just walk to the ring with us. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. So, and I brought a buddy of mine with me.
That's a great story.
And
he can come too.
And 100%. My dumb buddy got to walk with
Tommy
Morrison, former heavyweight champion of the world, to the ring, and it was like the coolest thing I'd ever done in my life.
How old
at
was
that
Tommy
point.
at this point?
Oh, he was probably 40 at this point. Like it wasn't good. It wasn't. I mean, nothing about this was good. Like in hindsight, in the moment,
Did he win?
yeah, he won, but it's because he was fighting a mixed martial artist who could only punch.
Oh, okay.
Like
Oh,
he was,
okay. I
he was
thought it
fighting. It wasn't even a boxer. He was fighting an MMA fighter that was only allowed to punch. I mean, he pulverized the guy. He murdered this poor gentleman. But yeah, it was in the moment, it was the coolest thing I had ever done in my life. Dude, I was.
Here it is. Oh, hold on. It's on Wikipedia. Exhibition record under he's 1-0 in his
So-
exhibitions against John Stover.
Whoever John Stover was. Did
Matt
they say?
Stover's son.
TKO.
Matt Stover was 8
2 minutes
years-
in. 2 minutes and 8
Yeah.
seconds into the first.
I didn't remember
first
being
round.
that long, to be honest with you. I thought it was even quicker.
Did you
than
walk
that.
him out? Did
Yeah.
You ever, Did you ever see him again?
Yeah. It stayed. Unfortunately, Tommy passed a few years back, but
The WFC Rumble in the Red Rocks.
Rumble in the Red Rocks. There you go.
What's his girlfriend doing now?
That's a good question. It's been a long time. I don't know what's going on. They were working on a documentary, and like they had interviewed me for the documentary, and I was sitting in on it. It was a lot of fun for that point in my life. I couldn't have enjoyed it anymore. But God, I would love if there was video of it somewhere. That'd be amazing.
hold on.
We could find video somehow.
Sure Dog's got a little write up about it.
Okay. It was so bad. And
Is
by the
there
way,
a
when you
is
say
there a picture of Glenn,
did I walk him out of the ring?
hit images.
No,
Maybe there's a picture of Glenn walking him.
It's so much worse because the booing was so overwhelming. People started throwing things, and
That's why they needed you. That's why they're
That's
like,
why
hey,
they-
hey, you,
yeah,
you.
right.
That's
you,
why they
you
asked you to walk in.
He ran. I wasn't allowed to stand at the ring. I had to stand back like 12 feet or so. I don't know how far it was. I had to stand back a little ways. He ran out of the ring, and I mean ran, like booked it. And I remember his girlfriend and I being like, "Oh crap!" and having to run behind him. Dude, it was it was so cool. It was so cool.
How many people were in the
Thousand,
arena or
thousand.
wherever?
Oh, it wasn't an arena.
Was
It
it
was
a tent?
out.
Was
It wasn't even a tent. It was just outdoors. There was a ring, and there were some like temporary bleachers
So
set
it was
up.
like 1,000 people, maybe.
1,000 maybe were there, and
Ryan Bader was there?
what?
That's is this right?
What?
No, you would have known.
Who?
You would've- Ryan Bader.
Well, I don't know. Ryan Bader was. It's possible that Ryan Bader was part of it. He was from Arizona. That makes sense. Like he totally would have been on a card like that when he was coming up, but he wasn't Ryan Bader at that point. So yeah, it's totally possible Ryan Bader was on that card. I was there for Tommy Morrison, my man. That was the only reason why I was at. What did you say? It was Rumble in the Red Rocks.
Rumble in the Red Rocks.
Did it say the name of the casino by chance?
No, it just says Camp Verde. Wait, no, I thought I saw it somewhere. Hold on.
It was a time, man. It was a time in my life. All right, we got to
Okay, yeah. It was the Cliff Castle Casino.
Cliff Castle Casino. Very all of the big celebrity fights
There's
happen at the Cliff
You
Castle.
should give that lead to Colson, John
What?
Colson. Maybe they
To
can
work on
sponsor-
getting the Cliff Castle Casino.
I mean, you've got very
I got a
fond
legendary
memories.
story.
Right.
I
Did you have a room at the?
I had a room at the Cliff Castle Casino, 100%, as part of Tommy Morrison's entourage.
The
it
Rumble
would
in the
be
Red Rocks,
great,
Glenn
man.
Clark.
Cliff
Dude,
Castle.
it was awesome.
It'd be
It
a
was
really
such
great
cool-
marketing campaign for them
The
to
Cliff-
focus on Baltimore sports.
Yeah, 100%. Come out to Camp Verde, Arizona. If you're ever in Camp Verde, Arizona,
and need a place to stay.
you ever making
Let
your
me recommend the
Right.
place.
If-
The
if-
place
I wonder if the
always
Rumble
stay.
in the Red Rocks series has continued over the years. It's like the Shogun fights in Arizona after they kept it going. Hey,
Maybe
guys,
you could talk to John Rallo about picking it back up.
man, what a time! What a time that was. I couldn't have had more fun. I remember there was an established longtime boxing writer for the Arizona Republic,
Right.
and he was infuriated because he was given no access whatsoever.
Always given no
And then this dope on the radio was like walking to the ring with Tommy Morrison. Dude, like I got a stink eye. I saw him the next day at breakfast. And I want to say his name was Norm Fraunheim. And he was a longtime writer, like a legendary boxing writer. He might be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. And I was like, hey, Norm. He was just not wanting to talk to me. It's bad. Orioles and Rays open up a 4-game series tonight, of course, after just playing last weekend back in Baltimore. Let's talk a little bit about that and a lot about the division on the whole. Joining us now, former MLB pitcher, Rays color analyst Brian Anderson is with us here on GCR. Brian, it's Glenn and Stan the Fan Charles here in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you, man. Thank you for taking the time for us.
Oh, for sure. Anytime, fellas.
Brian, I guess let me start with the Rays. Going into last weekend's series, I just kept thinking to myself, boy, maybe I know this is going to sound crazy. I know it's not great, but it's probably not as bad as maybe I expected it to be given all of the injuries and the guys who haven't been performing well. Is there any world where there's still a push that could be coming for the Rays this season?
You know what? I think that there is, and I think that if it's going to happen, you're going to see it happen relatively soon because this team is starting to get healthier. Josh Lowe, who is going to be a huge part of this team, a myriad of injuries has really kept him off the field the majority of the season, but he's now back and feeling good. Brandon Lau, who was hurt for a good period of time, is back and is healthy. And if he's healthy, we know how productive, very streaky, but how productive he can be, swinging the stick. Yandy Diaz has rounded back into form. Randy Arozarena is started to show you some better at-bats. The first 2 months were an absolute nightmare for Randy, but you're starting to see him come out of it just a little bit. So I think right now, and then you've got a couple of guys that were hurt, Colin Poche in the bullpen, which was awful in the month of April. They've started to come around and become a little bit more lockdown. And the way that some of the guys are throwing out of that pen, the Rays are one of those teams that can make it a 6-inning game. Have a lead after 5 or 6 and turn it to your big boys at the back end and they can shut it down. So all that to say, I do think that they have a run in them. But I think that it's going to be something that happens relatively soon if it's going to happen at all, because they're finally getting all the pieces back. Some of the guys who were underperforming are starting to come along, and they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. They feel pretty good. I know it was Miami, but they swept the Marlins. They had the off day yesterday, and they will be geared up for this series because, Baltimore is one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. And so the Rays always find a way to get up for those type of teams and those type of games. So this 4-game series should be awesome.
Brian, tell me about one of the guys that appeared to be getting healthy, who had a monster spring training, Jonathan Aranda, and he was down in the minors rehabbing much longer than I thought it would take. He got up and he was up for 2 weeks and he played a little here, a little there. What happened that he was optioned out?
Well, it becomes a numbers game, and it's going to be really interesting when you see Taylor Walls come off of the IL. And I think that maybe will happen at some point today, certainly some point over this weekend. That's what we've all been hearing. And the move that they make to get him on the roster. Is it Richie Palacios? You've heard his name bounced around, and he's been one of the more productive Rays and consistent Rays all season. Johnny DeLuca. He's kind of fallen into a little bit of a rut right now. Will he be the guy to go? So, there are guys that are being sent out that they don't necessarily want to, but, they're the only guys with options. And so sometimes you get caught up in the numbers game, and where they would prefer for you to stay, they almost have to send you out. If not, they're going to lose somebody. And we know how important, depth is with all the injuries that happen all across the game, not just the Rays, but all the teams out there. Your teams are so hell-bent on making sure that they have good depth that they don't want to have to DFA and give up a piece if they don't have to. And so sometimes that's just the way that it goes. And I think that they were feeling, send him down to AAA and get him regular at-bats, because that's one thing that he was not getting, at the big league level. And at some point, guess what? Someone else is going to go down, and he'll be right back up here.
He is Brian Anderson, Rays color analyst, who's with us here on GCR. Brian, now that we're at a point in the season where everybody's played everybody, I wanted to see if I could just sort of get some of your thoughts about the division on the whole, because Stan and I were talking about it early on in the show. Clearly, we got to wait and find out a little bit more about Juan Soto, who had to leave the game last night. But short of that being, a long-term thing, I think there's starting to be some fears, particularly here in Baltimore, that this Yankees thing, as they get Garrett Cole back, might just be such an insane juggernaut that there might not be a lot that you can do about it, which, as we learned a year ago, isn't the end of the world. The Orioles certainly, they were great in the regular season, and it didn't really help them a ton in the postseason. Is it possible that, the Yankees, with that combination of Judge and if Soto's healthy, it's just going to be difficult for everybody in this division to be able to compete with that?
Yeah, I think so. But Baltimore, listen, that's a juggernaut too. you're talking about a lineup that is deep 1 through 9. I mean, they get contributions up and down that lineup. And then you look at to see what their pitching staff has been doing. One of the best ERAs, team ERAs in all of Major League Baseball. I think it's second best in the American League. And so there's a lot of pieces there that they absolutely could catch the Yankees. I don't know if anybody else can at this point. Again, the Rays sitting at 500, we'll see what they do as they finally get healthy. If they can put a good run together like they did at the beginning of last season, we'll see if something like that happens. But, you're in danger of being in that area where you're not going to be, you're playing for a wild card essentially. And so I think that the Yankees, obviously they're playing with an edge. I think that's something different. I think this team was embarrassed last year at finishing 2 games over 500. And so they came out this year with a mindset that we're going to be a different team. We're going to be a grittier team. Certainly the addition of Juan Soto has helped out. Luis Gil on the pitching side of things, I mean, just been absolutely lights out in covering for Garrett Cole. And you're right, when he comes back, not only makes that team stronger, but by no means do I think that they are a dead runaway quite yet in the AL East, especially with Baltimore lurking, knowing, and here's the other thing that I noticed, from afar, is after the new ownership group took over, it was about 15 minutes later, they go out and trade for Corbin Burns. And I think that was a shot across the bow to the rest of the league, to the rest of the division. This is a new group, and we're going for it. And so that this Baltimore team is going to look to reinforce as they get closer to the All-Star break, or not the All-Star break, but the trade deadline. And so that there are going to be moves made to bolster whatever perceived or real weakness that team has.
Brian, with Cole due to come back shortly, do you think Luis Gil is going to they're going to start to parcel, as great as he's pitched at this point, he is a TJ surgery comeback. Do you think they need to watch his innings as they go along?
Yes, I think that they will. That's just part of the game now, especially coming off of an injury.
Yep.
Is you really start to look at workload and how to manage that. Listen, I know Major League Baseball, the last couple of seasons, one of the worst kept secrets in the game were pitchers, starting pitchers especially, going on the IL with an injury that was very vague, and you knew it was just, hey, we're going to get another body up here, give this guy a couple of missed starts, give him a blow, and get him back. That the injury wasn't real. Maybe you were sore, but it was, that wasn't a real injury. And so Major League Baseball, I think, in being able to recognize that, said, okay, no more 10-day IL for pitchers. If you put a pitcher on, it's going to be 15. We're going back to the 15, and so he's going to have to miss 2 or 3 starts at least. And so to discourage this fake IL, but guess what? These teams will continue to use it. They will use that. They will use off days to skip a start. They're going to do a lot of different things to make sure that he is able to hopefully finish the season as strong as he has started it. But I think that without question, that they're going to be monitoring those innings and finding different creative ways to make sure that he doesn't, burn out in August.
Brian, the pitching topic obviously has come into focus here in Baltimore, where before the last weekend series against the Rays, I think a lot of us would have said, like, hey, we're good with where the Orioles are starting pitching-wise. But then, of course, the news that John Means is going to be out for the season and Tyler Wells is going to be out for the year, and then Kyle Bradish got roughed up in the Saturday game, and there's some question about when he's going to start again. I start to think that as much as we've talked about the bullpen in Baltimore being in need, I think the Orioles need to go out and add another legitimate starting pitcher to this rotation, in part because guys get hurt after July 30th as well, for as much as they have, and as good as Cole Irvin is, as good as you bring up Corbin Burns, obviously. Does it feel to you like, hey, you want to win a World Series, you're still going to need even more than that?
Yeah, no, I think that the teams that really feel like they have a legitimate shot to go for it, and again, the trade for Corbin Burns shortly after everything became official with the new ownership group, I think that sent the message that they're going to go for it. So, those type of teams are always looking for interesting ways to add players that they think would push them over the top. And their internal discussions will say, hey, look, we've got a couple of Wells and Means out for the season. We've got a couple other question marks. We need to go out and solidify that starting rotation. A lot easier said than done, because as soon as teams get the feeling that you are really looking for a high-end starter, they're going to jack that price through the roof and try to get into a bidding war with other teams. So it's not real easy to do, but they will certainly be leaving no stone unturned in trying to do that. And again, I think that this team really feels that they, Baltimore I'm talking about, obviously, that they really feel like this is a year that they're going to go for it and World Series or bust. And so they're going to go out and try to do whatever they can to, improve the team and to make sure that there's enough depth there to make a deep run in October.
Brian, one of the best hires during the offseason, I know was somebody the Orioles had interest in, was the Boston Red Sox hiring Andrew Bailey to be their pitching coach. Do you know him well, and can you explain a little bit about his process? Because I've watched Tanner Houck have like an off-the-chart season this year, and a guy you might be familiar with, Cooper Criswell, is also pitching very well for the Red Sox.
Yeah, well, this is what I'll tell you about Andrew Bailey. He doesn't like any pitch that remotely is straight. I mean, when you look at Boston, it is all about spin and sweeper. You look across the league, and the league average for a staff throwing the four-seam fastball is right around 30%. With Boston, it's around 13 or 14%. They have, for the most part, junked throughout the staff the four-seam fastball. It's the two-seamer with run. It's the sweeper with big break. He's a big sweeper fan. And I know that's the pitch du jour right now in Major League Baseball, but he is a huge fan of the sweeper, the slider, the curveball. They've got a guy on their staff, and I can't remember if it's Cutter Crawford. I can't remember who it was, but when we were playing up there and you're kind of going through the guy's arsenal, you're like, wait a minute, he throws literally 4 different types of breaking balls. I mean, when I was pitching, a lot of times if your curveball and slider weren't distinct, they didn't even like you to throw 2 breaking balls because they felt that they would blend together. And this guy threw curveball, slider, sweeper, and slurve. He had 4 breaking balls. And so, Andrew Bailey, he loves the spin, and he loves pitches that have darting action if it's going to be a fastball, and big break, big sweep if it's going to be the breaking balls. And he's completely revamped that pitching staff top to bottom. And, the numbers speak for themselves. Kind of crazy how you can spend an off season breaking everybody down, come in, revamp a lot of different arsenals, and look at the success. Wow.
Yeah, it's incredibly impressive. There's no question about that. Brian, before we let you go, because the one team that we haven't brought up yet is Toronto, ironically, we're talking about a team that's only 2 games under 500 that just beat the Orioles back-to-back, and yet, we're looking at them as they're in trouble. Can they still get this figured out to be in a playoff race, or is it more likely that they're going to be in a place where they're going to have to consider moving pieces, maybe moving on from a manager, things along those lines over the course of the next couple of months?
I would ask you the same question.
Yeah.
This team, it's tough to figure out because they have the cachet when it comes to the names on the back of the jerseys, former big league sons that have played at a high level, Bichette, Guerrero Jr., BGO, they go out and they bring in all these different pieces, and yet they never seem to put it together. And I thought it was interesting in spring training when Bo Bichette was saying basically, for the first time, people doubt us. That no longer are we considered, Toronto, this is going to be their year. That's the way it was the last couple of years, and they really didn't do what everybody thought they could do. And so I think there was a lot of doubt on this team coming into spring, and I took those comments from Bo to mean they're going to be playing from the very beginning of the season with a sense of urgency to show everybody, no, we can get it done, and we will get it done. Haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it. They've been very, very inconsistent. One time you see them and you're like, okay, look, the last couple of games against Baltimore, I caught most of those 2 games. Okay, that's impressive. Now, Baltimore yesterday closed on them, quickly at the end. I was actually hoping for extra innings, wanted to see a little bit more daytime baseball. But anyway, all that to say, you just keep waiting for this team to kick it into gear, and they haven't. They haven't over span of years. So I don't know. You tell me.
Right.
I have no idea.
Manager.
I keep believing there's too much talent there for them to be. I don't know, man. They are not consistent whatsoever.
Here's the way I look at it real quick, Brian. They made a big play for Ohtani to be that missing piece in their lineup, and then they let Chapman go, and they replaced it with Kiner Falefa and Kevin Kiermaier. I mean, and Justin Turner.
Not quite the same. Not quite the same. Not quite the same.
No, you know what? And I thought that they probably thought too. Yeah, this isn't the same. They would be the first probably to tell you that, but they were putting tons and tons of stock into their pitching staff because of how they really overachieved a season ago. And it hasn't quite been the same. But even that, you know, sometimes when you watch those guys play, you wonder, you know, if their head's into it. It just, I don't know. It was interesting because they had Charlie Montoya there as the manager, and it didn't seem like he had a hold of that clubhouse as strongly as you would like. And then you get Schneider in there, John Schneider, and, you know, he's more of a, okay, guys, this is how we're going to do it. And that doesn't seem to be working. What style is going to get it done? And I mean, I don't know. Like I said, that team is such an enigma. You never know what you're going to get from them.
Brian, enjoy the next 4 days with the Orioles in town. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes, sir, fellas. Yep, anytime. Appreciate it.
Brian Anderson, former World Series winner and Tampa Bay Rays color analyst. Appreciate him taking the time for us this morning here on GCR. Hey, with the finals underway, both in basketball and now getting underway in hockey this weekend, the best place to watch all of it is at Sports and Social inside Live Casino and Hotel. It is the best atmosphere, hands down, in the region. It is awesome. Giant media wall, electric atmosphere, massive environment. Everybody living and dying over every play during the course of a game because they've all got action in at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Great food and drink menu, specials all the time. There's just nothing like watching big events inside Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel. You want to reserve a spot? You can reserve a table by going to the website. You can reserve the blue reclining chairs by going right to the desk there at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Sports and Social, the best place to watch all of the big events, including final season, which is underway. All right, Stan, you demanded more soccer talk on GCR. You said it's time to talk soccer. And coming up this summer, we got an awesome event as Crystal Palace is going to be taking on Wolverhampton Wanderers at Navy Marine Corps Stadium in Annapolis on July 31st. Joining us now to tell us a little bit more about it, he is the senior marketing manager for the Wolverhampton Wanderers. He's Todd Newton, and he is with us now here on GCR. Todd, it's Glenn and Stan Charles. It's great to chat with you. Thank you for taking the time for us this morning.
Hi, guys. No problem at all. It's great to speak to you both, and we're really excited about coming out and seeing you guys at the end of July. It's going to be amazing.
We're really excited about it as well. We are all for major events like this in our community. Todd, can you because I think now we're seeing this across sports, right? We're seeing this weekend, there's Major League Baseball games in London, and we see obviously the NFL reaching out. The impact of teams like the Wolves coming and playing in the United States, how much have you seen the value of, like, when you come to a community like ours, do you see an immediate, like, hey, in the months that follow, there's clicks from this community that you've built a fan base here? How much real impact is there when you come play a match like this?
It is huge. It's actually, funnily enough, it's been over 40 years since Wolves have actually been physically out playing in the US. So for us to come out this summer is so important because we've been out in different capacity over that time. We regularly are here for Premier League Morning Live event that they do, and it's now to be able to come out and play a game in front of the fans is fantastic. And as you said, whenever we're out in the US and people see the kit or the crest or anything associated with the brand, you do see people come and speak to you. And at Premier League Morning Live, for example, it was incredible. The amount of fans that were there in the old gold and black, visually it was fantastic. And to be able to come out this summer and engage with fans, show them the style of play, let them watch the actual team play in front of their eyes, I think it's a really great opportunity.
Why Annapolis? Why Maryland, right? Like, why, as you guys do, jump into, now let's come to the States, let's get back to playing matches here. Why was this a region that you looked at and said, hey, we want to be a part of that?
Yeah, I think there's such a charm that comes with this part of the US and this part of the state. I think it almost feels a little bit British and a little bit European. Like there's quite a lot of character. There's some like old bars, old pubs. The kind of scenery is fantastic, and I think it almost becomes a home away from home for not only the players but any of the UK fans that may be travelling out here. It was a bit of a no-brainer for us, and then just seeing like the facilities of like the stadiums and everything that will go into the actual match day operation. It was a really, really easy like decision for us. And it's definitely just being out in kind of downtown this morning and the engagement with our mascot that was there, the kind of excitement it was causing, and we were there for only about half an hour, and to have that kind of small glimpse into potentially what it will look like in the summer was really, really exciting.
Todd, tell me a little bit about, it's exciting to get the match here in Annapolis, but I also know Mike Libber, who's one of the promoters of this. It's not just this one match. This is part of a sort of a cup, but and games are going to be played in Jacksonville, and where's the other city?
Yeah, it's in Tampa. So
Tampa.
We've got there's going to be 3 Premier League clubs that are coming out. So there's us, there's Wolves, and we're going to be coming out with Crystal Palace and West Ham. And it's what the kind of tournament we're playing in is called the Stateside Cup. It's the first of its kind, the first time that we've been part of something like this. And by doing that, it adds that competitive edge. It's not just a one-off game where the players will be going through the motion. When a Premier League club faces off against a Premier League club, there's always a lot at stake. And now that it's been kind of coined into this tournament as well is really, really encouraging. So yeah, we're here obviously in Annapolis playing Crystal Palace, and then we play West Ham in Jacksonville, and then in Tampa, you'll find West Ham and Crystal Palace playing each other. So the 3 teams will all play each other once, and yeah, it's in this kind of cup kind of formation. So it's quite, as I say, it adds that competitive edge to it as well. So fans will be able to see players actually going to try and win the game as opposed to just a bit of fitness for over 90 minutes.
It adds a competitive edge. It's economically, it sounds like it really makes sense to have more than one match to bring teams over. But is there a financial bonus to the players if they win the cup?
No, not that I'm aware of. No, I think this is, and as I said, with the Premier League players, they're driven by competition. At Wolves, when they come here, they won't want to lose against Crystal Palace, and Palace won't want to lose against us. And the exact same with West Ham. But there's 3 clubs there that are very similar in ability, in size. So it'll be really, really competitive, and nobody will want to lose. But it wouldn't be like a financial reason. These guys are here for pride and wanting to walk away as the top Premier League club out of the US this summer.
All right, so we're chatting with Todd Newton. He is the senior marketing manager for Wolverhampton Wanderers. Again, they're playing in Annapolis at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium on July 31st against Crystal Palace. Todd, we got to get to the nitty-gritty. My favorite thing, so I am a free agent when it comes to Premier League fandom, all right? Like, I love the sport. I love going out to the bars and watching the matches. I love getting together. There's huge fan clubs in this area for different teams. My absolute favorite thing is chanting and singing and getting involved in all of that. So if I'm going to be a Wolves fan for the night on July 31st, what do I need to know? Like, what are the chants that I need to know? What are the songs that I need to know?
Can you get a scarf?
Well, that I definitely could go for. But, like, how can I practice being a Wolves fan for July 31st?
I probably can't repeat some of the chants that happen for Wolves fans on your show, so I'd probably not want to open you up to any complaints. Do you know what? What is very, very creative about the Wolves fans is there are some chants that we have, like we play Hi Ho Silver Lining when the teams come out, which is kind of synonymous with Wolves. The Wolves fans will come up with new chants. They'll usually put it next to like a well-known song or a well-known like track that they will then make up their own words for certain players. a good way of searching it is if you go onto like social media or TikTok and you search Wolves chants, you'll find a lot of them. And like I say, some of them may contain one or two fruity kind of phrases. But I think, I think that the chants that they do is brilliant and it's very, very easy to pick up. So yeah, that they are. I think they are the team that you should be supporting. But yeah, you check them out and see what you think.
All
and
right.
also, funny enough as well, Robert Plant, obviously legend.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's a huge Wolves fan. He's on our board. He's at the games, and he also provides the music for when the players walk out. We've got like a bit of a Led Zeppelin. Yeah. So we recently worked with Robert. Went to a studio with him, and he was kind of fine-tuning that. So we have Kashmir playing and Whole Lot of Love, and it just creates, when the players walk out, you've got Led Zeppelin blasting, there's flames coming out of the ground. It's quite something. So yeah, it's a real special club to be part of.
I love this. I had no idea. I didn't know about
you're turning your back on Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm out. I'm a Wolves man now. At least until July 31st.
And if you're a Led Zeppelin fan, then Wolves are your team.
Well, I am alive, so yes, I'm a Led Zeppelin fan. I don't know who's. I have that qualification if I'm breathing. So yes, I love Led Zeppelin because that's the way that it goes. I can't wait for this. This is going to be an awesome event, and really, I hope that you want to. What we love, just these types of events, what they do for our community as well.
What's the best way? What's the best way to get tickets, Todd?
Yeah, the best way to do it, if you head to statesidecup.com, all the information's on there, and that's for all the games. So yeah, head to statesidecup.com. You can look at all the kind of ticketing options on there, and obviously get yourself down here and obviously cheer on the Wolves. I'm sure West Ham and Palace won't mind me saying that.
You know what? It's going to be an awesome time. We are so excited about this.
It really is. It's an exciting match.
Can't wait to have you, Todd Newton. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us this morning to tell us more about it.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
It's Todd Newton from Wolverhampton Wanderers with us this morning here on GCR as we get ready for Annapolis hosting this event.
You're going to try and go?
I'd love to go. I'd love to take the kids.
Yeah.
It's a very cool thing. Look, I will always support more big events. Look, I don't know if you've been paying attention. So remember last year we talked about the Annapolis Blues, the team that Dave Johnson is involved with. They played their first home match last Saturday night. I believe it was 12,000 people.
Really? Did they play at the Navy Marine Corps?
That's where they play. Yeah. They play at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. 12,000 people.
Wow.
For a fairly low-level, professional soccer league.
Yeah.
There is a vibrant, and I remember talking to Dave about it last year, there is a vibrant soccer community in Annapolis specifically.
It's because of the pubs.
It must be because of the pubs and sort of the old-school feel there. But very cool thing for this match to be happening in Annapolis. All summer long, you want to find out the latest news, coaching changes, get previews for high school football season. You can check out countysports.zone. County Sports Zone is proudly sponsored by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. Countysports.zone for all of the latest all summer long. We'll come back in and put the finishing touches on the show and the week. Stan the Fan Charles is in studio with us for a Friday edition of Glenn Clark Radio.
The ultimate fan experience awaits you at Sports and Social Maryland. See how we're raising the sports bar with our massive 100-foot media wall featuring 40 HD TVs and a 47-foot big screen. Bet on your favorite teams and this year's biggest events at the FanDuel Sportsbook while enjoying your favorite beers and cocktails, plus our delicious takes on bar food classics. Visit Sports and Social at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland at Arundel Mills. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hagerstown, Maryland, a snapshot of American history that dates back centuries. Today, the roots of the city expand with another historical moment, the grand opening of Meredith Park, Hagerstown's new event stadium and home to the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Experience the energy, culture, and adventure. Plan your getaway today at America's newest and most innovative ballpark. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland. Visit Hagerstown.com.
The votes were all counted, and the results are official. Royal Farms was named #1 for food in the USA Today 10 Best poll, receiving more votes than any other convenience store chain in America. The next time you want to get some good food fast, doesn't it make sense to go to Royal Farms? Voted best in the USA and home of world-famous chicken. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today.
Gambling can be a fun and entertaining experience, but there are risks involved. If you're planning on betting on the game at the casino or on your phone or computer, know your limit, stay within it. Set a budget and a time to stop. Remember, gambling isn't a financial solution, and it doesn't mix well with alcohol or drugs. Know the risks and have a plan before you begin gambling. For free and confidential services, call 1-800-GAMBLER 24/7 or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org.
The Ed Block Courage Award Foundation has been working in partnership with the NFL for 46 years to support abused, neglected, and at-risk youth across the country, partnering each team with a children's facility or program that supports the well-being of those in need. Annually, one player from each team is selected by their peers to receive the Courage Award for their inspiration on and off the field. Learn more about how the Ed Block Courage Award Foundation makes a difference, and be sure to check out their latest podcast and web series episodes at edblock.org.
Coming back in here with Glenn and the other guy, Garrett, whatever his name is. You know who they are.
Well, it's a Friday, and on Fridays, we try to have Griffin catch us up on what else has been going on in the world of baseball.
This week,
In the rest of
baseball.
I already did all the reads, so this one's brought to you by Griffin. Look at Griffin!
All right. This week in the rest of baseball, I know we touched on it like for a second, I think, but over the weekend, Birmingham Southern and their baseball team,
that was a neat story.
their journey did come to an end in the that was the D2 College Baseball World Series, right?
So, so if you aren't familiar, Birmingham Southern as a school, this was their final act. They're closing. They already closed
The university.
Birmingham
Like at the
Southern.
end of the school year, so it was like May 20-something.
Right. So the baseball team was still playing in the postseason tournament after the university had officially been shut down. There was no university. It did not exist any longer, but their baseball team was still playing. It became
So all those underclassmen can be re-recruited now.
Yes, correct.
But they're losers.
They didn't win. That's a great point, Stan. They didn't win, but it became it got a lot of national interest, and everybody was rooting for. But yes, they fell short of winning the national championship.
They did. Then also earlier this week on Monday, Rhys Hoskins returned to Philly for the first time as a visiting player, and it was a very cool moment because the Phillies, they honored him pretty well. Like it was a very big crowd. Yep. And they played like his walk-up song when he came up, and it was about a minute-long ovation from the crowd. And then he got on base, and he stole a base off JT Realmuto. They were all cracking up about it. It was a really cool thing to see that.
It's neat. I know it's not related, but I was actually a little bit surprised. The reaction to Kyrie Irving last night in Boston was not as intense as I expected it to be.
You thought they'd be more?
I thought it was going to be like pure. Because remember, at first it was vitriol. Like, I mean, it was about as ugly as anything. I'm not trying to suggest they were, nice to him, but like, it just was not as. And yeah, Kyrie Irving also sucked last night.
It reminded me, what did the Wizards?
Yeah.
I know we're in this week in the rest of baseball. What did the Wizards get for Porzingis?
I don't remember.
That's a good question.
Was it like a set of number 2s or something like that?
I
sorry,
I'm
sorry.
Don't
it was
remember.
driving me nuts last night.
Yeah, this is mine.
Let's see. Agreed to 3-team deal for Porzingis agreed to opt into his player option with the Wizards. So they get the what?
Tyus Jones is what they got.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah.
And they got
great trade. Another great Wizards trade.
They got a first-round pick this year, right? From the Warriors, it looks like.
If you say so.
That's what
If you say
Sports
so.
Illustrated.
All right, I'm sorry. Go back to this week.
And then on Tuesday, Connor Norby hit his first career home run for his first career hit. We obviously did cover that. But also, just kind of uniquely, the number 6 prospect for the Tigers was also called up earlier this week. And on Wednesday, for his first career hit, he also hit a home run.
Who was that?
Justin Henry Malloy.
Justin Henry Malloy. So just a couple first times for those guys, and both
ex-member
home
of
runs.
my fantasy team.
Justin Henry Malloy.
Gave up on him just at the right time,
I
Stan.
gave up on him way earlier.
Oh, okay. That's why he made the big leagues. They finally
Yeah,
Stan,
right.
Stan's
Yeah,
dropped him.
now-
His career's taken off
Correct.
since then.
Now the guy won't get hurt. Now we don't have to worry about that.
Probably the bigger story, I guess, from the week was Paul Skeens and the taking on the Dodgers, and to start the game, he struck out Mookie Betts on 4 pitches, and then Ohtani back-to-back on 3 pitches. He went 101, 102, and 101, and struck out Ohtani. And then the second time,
Is that fast?
Is that good? Is that what you're looking for?
Decent. And then Ohtani in the second at bat took him deep. It was and 100 miles per hour, also the fastest pitch that Ohtani has homered on in his career now in Major League Baseball. But I feel like it does kind of warrant maybe the question, just since we were talking about it a little bit this week. When how long do we just be like, wow, Paul Skeens is great, or when is it like,
Oh, how long does it take for us to accept
him
that
to
this
fall
is what
apart?
Paul Skeens
Well,
is?
or is he going to fall apart? Like, we're just kind of expecting.
Well, I mean, I think with every pitcher at this point, you're expecting. Say fall apart. I expect
in,
all
as
of them.
in his elbow.
Yes, I expect all of them to need Tommy John surgery at some point. But when that is, I'm not going to guess on that. I assume they're all going to.
And do we trust him? When he goes down, will he come back and be the same?
For the most part, these guys have been fine.
Are the Pirates drawing more people when he pitches?
I
mean,
believe they have to.
significant.
They
I mean,
have
obviously
to.
the first start was
Yeah.
a mob scene, but yes.
And it helped. I think they were in Pittsburgh, so in the Dodgers coming in
Yeah,
to play
that
Pittsburgh.
must have
Paul
been a
Skeens
big
went.
crowd.
Yeah, it looked good. That was a great picture of he threw as soon as he threw the pitch, the home run pitch. He turned around and Skeens was just smiling because he knew the ball was gone, and Ohtani was in the background, kind of watching it too. So it was a good pick there. It was a fun sequence.
That was
there.
good stuff.
And I think did the Dodgers win? I can't remember if they won, or the Pirates won that game.
Apparently, Paul Skeens went to, he was an Ohtani fan, and Paul Skeens was there when Ohtani made his first start as a fan. Paul Skeens was there when Ohtani made his first start in 2018. So
in L.A.?
In L.A. or in Anaheim, yeah.
Struck him out on 3 pitches. Also home run. Seems like, pretty even right now. Maybe. I don't know. How you weigh a three
so here's a stat. This is from Jeremy Wheeler. He says that the Pirates' home attendance for the season is 19,547. The average attendance for his 3 home starts is 29,267. So an average 10,000.
It's like Fernando Mania.
Yeah, right.
I know we did mention it in the first segment, but I was gonna we have to cover Luis Gil because he's been
bonkers.
ridiculous, as well as the Yankees as a whole. But
I'd rather we didn't, for the record.
Well, he's been doing stuff that has only been done once. So since May 1st, I referenced that earlier. He has 50 strikeouts. He has allowed 3 or fewer runs, and also 15 or fewer hits. And that's been a 7-outing span. Only one other player in the history of baseball has had those exact numbers in any 7-outing span.
Greg Maddux.
Not Greg Maddux.
Nolan Ryan.
It was recent.
It's recent. Verlander.
Not Verlander.
Scherzer.
Not Scherzer.
Zach Wheeler.
Not Zach Wheeler.
How recent?
2021.
Cole.
Not Cole. He was a New York pitcher.
Was it Jacob deGrom?
Jacob deGrom and Luis Gil, the only two to ever have those numbers in a 7-outing span. Is also holding, through his first 19 career starts now, holding opposing batters to a 153 batting average, which is the lowest mark of any pitcher in their first 19 starts.
Remarkable.
Yes. Elly De La Cruz, 1 year ago yesterday, made his major league debut, and in that span, he has racked up 67 stolen bases and 57 extra base hits. He is the only player in baseball history with at least 65 stolen bases and 50 extra base hits within 1 year of their major league debut. So De La Cruz, pretty good as well.
Remarkable.
I guess leave the pro diamond for a second. So cricket yesterday, people are making fun of Pakistan because
they lost it
to
with the United
US.
States. Yes,
because
correct.
everybody likes to dog on the U.S.
Right.
for not knowing anything and not knowing how to play cricket.
Yeah. How about that, huh?
The U.S. Took down.
Gotta be honest with you, I didn't even know we had a cricket team.
They took down
straight up. Did not
in
know.
T20, the Cricket World Cup. They took down Pakistan.
Hell yeah, we did.
Yeah.
USA, USA, USA.
And also yesterday, Oklahoma defeated Texas in the college softball World Series in 2 games. So
women's college softball.
The women's college.
Yes. They don't have a men's softball.
They don't have.
They do not.
Okay. Did not know that.
And then also last night, just because we've also been talking about like robot umpires and the automated strike zone for a few times this week. Last night's D-backs Padres game ended on
I saw it. Oh,
a strikeout that was
God,
about
it was
2
atrocious.
inches at least off the plates. And so a lot of.
Do you have the
video?
I believe Mark Grant was doing the game with the Padres and just murdered them. I mean, like, went in. I saw this. It was atrocious.
Remember who was up for San Diego?
Don't remember. Cronenworth. Yeah, it was Cronenworth. It was Cronenworth.
So they have the tying run on second base.
Hang on. I can send it to you if you don't have it. Hang on a second. You have your email open? All right. This is from the Padres broadcast. It's as bad as you think it was. It was. You got it? All right. I just sent it to you. It's atrocious, and Mark Grant was not having it. As this was the end of the game. It was a 4-3 game. Runner on second base. 2-2 count with Jake Cronenworth at the plate. And I don't remember. Do you remember who the umpire was? I don't remember who it was that was behind the plate. Okay. All right. This is what it sounded like. Can I see it? Oh.
Straight 3 call. And that ends the ball game, and that was not close to being a strike.
Brutal. Horrible. Took the bat right out of the kid's hands. Wasn't even close.
Like Schilt out there arguing that very point, but this game is over.
Now, you gotta be shaving me. I don't think I've ever even heard that before. So this is one of the the challenge system is coming. It's happening, right? It's just a matter.
It seems like the answer.
It's a matter of when, and yes, that would be fixed by the challenge system. But if you have and that's still the part of the problem that's not being addressed, right?
Eric Backus, is that how you say it, or Backus?
No, Backus.
Eric Backus.
Yeah, it was the umpire. That will be addressed by the challenge system.
I love how it says ejections as well in the box score. Mike Schilt got
after the game was over, and you can actually see the umpire. It's sort of like a, like a half-hearted, like, yeah, you're tossed. The game's over.
Who was pitching? Was that Seawald?
Yes.
The only thing I'll say in the umpire's defense is Seawald's balls move tremendously.
They do, and it started in the zone.
And it's not exactly where the guy catches the ball. That's the misnomer in this.
Right, but the technology isn't for where the ball's caught either. Like, the technology is for where it crosses the plate. Like, that's the advantage of when we get to that system is it's not, and it's part of the problem. It's definitely not where the guy catches the ball, as we've seen, because pitch framing is laughable. I mean, yes, it's utterly it's comical where we've gotten the pitch framing at this point. It was atrocious. You want to say, like, you've seen worse? Yeah, you've probably seen worse, but
shaving me.
Yeah, you gotta be shaving me. It's so good. But you're in the circumstances of it being how the game ended, where credit to Jay Cronenworth because he saw that pitch well and knew it wasn't a strike. It needs to be fixed. The real issue to me is now imagine you introduce the challenge system, but you've used all your challenges, and now we're back in the. We thought we solved the problem, but we're still not solving the problem. Mm-hmm. And that's the struggle that I continue to have with this. Is like, yes, it's better than nothing. We all agree with that. But still, it could end up being like the pass interference thing in the NFL where, hey, we're going to solve this problem by not at all solving the problem.
Have they pitched any, how many challenges? You get one a game? Or
there's been a bunch of different stuff that's been thrown out.
Maybe if you get one in
the team would get 3 per game. Yeah, the team lots of stuff has been thrown out. But imagine if there are a lot of missed calls, balls and strikes wise. And in the 9th inning of a game, you're going to be inclined to use your challenge. So imagine you've already used your challenge, and now you get to the end of the game, and that's what happens.
It's quite clear that they've kind of, in my opinion, they've overthought this by a mile. In other words, they feel the powers that be in Major League Baseball that they wanted to take this opportunity to get something right. They say, you know what? But that might be boring to fans to just have the calls automated.
Mm-hmm.
That, hey,
so let's
we could
go
have this
right.
challenge system, and it'll create more interest.
It's Stan. I have asked like every player that's come on. I've asked about it, and
they're all against any challenge, anything.
Well, they're
like
good with
this.
the challenge system.
They're good with the challenge
system. They are 100% against automatic balls and strikes, which is so bizarre to me.
Yeah.
But I've gotten the sense it makes sense for the batters are convinced, as rightfully so, the strike zone on the whole is going to get bigger if you go to ABS, because again, in ABS, any ball that touches even the slightest part of the plate is a strike.
But I think that's where the problem came up, is that the strike zone has over 30 years has shrunk more and more to where it's like a teacup.
In talking to the pitchers, they're convinced that baseball, because they know it would be enlarged, is going to artificially make the strike zone smaller because of it. And the pitchers will tell you, we also like knowing certain umpire strike zones and being able to manipulate it. And we would miss that if it goes away. I
mean, silly me, I thought all along that pitchers would enjoy predictability, and what is a strike on Monday is going to be a strike on Wednesday, is going to be a
silly
strike
you
on Friday.
indeed, Stan. Silly
Stupid
you
me.
Indeed. That's not the case. Yeah, that was brutal.
It was.
All right.
Yeah, that is.
And that's it. Very good. That's this
it'll
week.
be London this weekend. They've been making a big deal about that. They do want people to watch. I feel like it's a better rollout this time around than they did last year, in my opinion.
I don't know, maybe.
Maybe it's because the Phillies are involved and they're like.
Yeah, they're very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Mets are not, though. So
Well, they got the Phillies.
it's not a.
By the way, did you see those god-awful City Connect uniforms that Toronto wore?
Yes.
What you couldn't see what was on the uniform.
It was
the skyline.
I mean,
maybe they should have a graphic on the TV screen with an arrow, like point. This is the.
It's also weird, like they were wearing them in the middle of the week, like then it's not a Friday.
Well, they just did because they just.
Oh, they just put them out, so they're wearing
them
them
like
more.
Saturday or something.
All right, that's what it is then.
All
right.
I don't know. I mean,
those are hideous.
I just don't know. I just don't
Those are
know
hideous.
what.
That,
the
and by
City
the way,
Connect.
Griffin didn't include the Oakland thing because I ranted on it yesterday. The absurdity, and it's not. Nobody is under. This is the way the world works now. You see somebody say something on the internet and you believe it's fact.
Right.
And so people on the internet believe that the Oakland Athletics, when they move to Las Vegas, are purposely trying to play games away from Las Vegas because that's what's being told to them on the internet, and it ain't even close to true.
So the
Far
wait
be
a
it-
minute, the A's have not.
In their lease,
Right.
they are protected. They're asking to be protected for up to 7 games.
Right.
That would
the
be
number I heard was 8.
the London
Red-
series,
yeah, okay.
the Little League Classic, the Field of Dreams game. They're not saying we're going to play 7 games away from Las Vegas. It's we need to know that we aren't contractually obligated to have to play 160 or 81 games here in case we are a part of those events, which similar language is in the Orioles lease. Similar languages
then where did the topic come up? I saw the quote that we're doing this to improve the brand.
The idea is participating in those events. If they're asked to participate them, is every team wants to participate in them because it would be, a national audience. It would be an opportunity to improve the brand.
So it's not much ado about
It's
nothing.
an insane amount to do about nothing. It's bonkers how this story has been, taken it. It's a game of telephone. Like the truth started one place.
Right.
Somebody wrote something about it,
Well,
and
I
all
read
of a sudden,
it on MLB Trade Rumors,
and all of a
it made
sudden,
it sound like that it was a thing.
No, they're not like purposely saying, we want to go play 4 games a year in
Portland.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anything along those lines. It's if we get the opportunity to participate in these events, we want to be contractually protected that we can go participate in those events. We all know the Oakland Athletics or the Las Vegas will not be invited to play in all of these things every year. That would be insane. But they're protecting themselves for that within the lease, which is what every team is doing within their leases.
That would be a Major League Baseball thing that they would force teams to have in their lease.
Correct. You
so
have
why
to
are
have
they
it in your
asking
lease.
for 7 or 8 games?
It's protection for up to that. It's not we're going to do it. It's for up to 7 to 8 games. Understand? Which, again, that's almost never going to happen except for we're seeing how this is – and I talked about this yesterday. I don't think there are going to be less of these moving forward. Baseball, much like football, is seeing
moving more international.
Right. Let's have more international games. Let's have more standalone games. So let's make sure teams are protected for up to a handful of games that might be played elsewhere. But it's not we're definitely going to go play games in, Sheboygan next year or something like that. It's if we get invited.
What do you have against Sheboygan?
I love Sheboygan. I hear it's beautiful this time of year.
All the time.
Steubenville is also a very
Steubenville. You're a big fan
played
of.
once there,
Oh yeah. How about that?
I was barnstorming
with Crystal Palace.
I was barnstorming in the Negro Leagues.
Oh wow, that's weird. That's a very weird. I don't know how that happened. But
I used to catch Satchel Paige.
That's
couldn't
remarkable.
Tell.
I
couldn't
is
tell. I had
really
a mask
because you had a mask
on.
on. Nobody knew. Wow,
Nobody knew.
That is incredible. You integrated the Negro Leagues? I feel like that should be a bigger story, Stan. I feel like maybe
I've tried to keep it on the down low.
Yeah. Well, now you got to be happy that you can see your statistics. Now you got to be. Have they pulled? Have they been?
By the way, I went yesterday. I was doing a baseball immaculate grid. Okay, and I always check my answers before I put them in, so I don't get.
Oh, you cheat, yeah.
No, it's not cheating because I don't go around and going, "Hey, I had a 3 or a 2."
Okay.
So anyway, I looked up Hank Aaron. It asked Negro League player who played at least one game at shortstop. I said, I think Hank Aaron played shortstop. I looked it up. And it says Hank Aaron started out, he was discovered by somebody, and he was a shortstop for the Indianapolis Clowns or something like that. I put it in.
They are clowns in Indianapolis. No shortstop?
No,
really?
They didn't count.
Well, they got to get on it. They gotta get on
Bastards. And Ernie Banks didn't show as a shortstop.
100%. All right, very good. Let's get a tidbit.
Have you ever thought of taking a cruise to these wonderful destinations with sunny skies and beautiful beaches? Well, wait no longer. We're ready for you to cruise from the Cruise Maryland Terminal.
Have a little phrase that you can go from baggage to margarita in about 15 minutes.
Choose fun with an array of destinations, onboard activities, entertainment, and world-class cuisine.
Contact your travel agent and book your cruise today. Let your adventure begin.
By the way, for the record, apparently, what's interesting about the Athletics, the other lease agreements were apparently only like 3 to 4 games that were protected to be played elsewhere. That's why this number seems large and why that's been I think a greater reaction to the thing for the Athletics. All right, go ahead. Let's get a tidbit.
All right, tidbit-wise, we're going to go with, since we're talking about the swing speed and, obviously the bat tracking, which is new this season. I haven't really dived into it a whole lot, but since I was earlier in the show, I want to see if you guys can, how well you can rank the Orioles. Which Oriole, who has the highest average bat speed, swing speed, and who would be the lowest, the slowest? So the slowest... Their average swing speed is 69 miles per hour. The leader on the Orioles is at 75.7.
So the highest is Gunnar Henderson.
That is correct.
Makes sense.
Gunnar number 1.
The next.
So there's 8 qualified guys. It expands to 12 if we do guys that have swung the bat 100 times. Do you want to just do the 8 qualified?
Let's just do
guys?
the 8. Okay. Let's just do that.
All right.
Give me the topic again.
Average bat speed. So Gunnar is number 1 on the Orioles at 75.7. Who do you think would be second? Or try to give me who's lowest if you want to go that
on the
route.
Orioles second, Ryan Mountcastle.
That is correct. Ryan Mountcastle, 75.3 is his average bat speed.
I'll say O'Hearn.
Ryan O'Hearn is not third. He does qualify.
Well, obvious.
I'm gonna guess where he's
so
at.
he's
I'm trying to figure out how I should.
5th.
Correct.
Hey, how about that?
Austin Hayes.
Austin Hayes is just outside of course. He doesn't qualify yet. His what?
Colton Cowser.
Colton Cowser's third.
Oh, yeah,
correct.
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
74 miles per hour. The average.
So then we'll
speed.
say, I'm between Adley and Santander. Adley. Santander.
Yeah. So you have the top 5. 3 guys remaining to round out the.
Then how about Adley?
Adley is the slowest bat speed.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting as well. 69.3 miles per hour.
That's very
the average bat speed of Adley.
So Westberg
would be second slowest.
Wow.
So Cedric?
Cedric Mullins would be at 71.1. It's the sixth.
Yeah, I thought I had seen a stat about that recently, but
and he's like dead average. Just like when you look at the whole league, like his because I had his name up there, and he's.
How about Corbin Burns?
You want to see like the swing speed against him, maybe? I don't know if they. I guess they probably have that. I'm not sure how I find it yet. All right, then how about for the full league then? Across all of baseball, who do you think has the highest, fastest swing?
Cruz.
Not Ellie De La Cruz.
O'Neill, what's his name with Pittsburgh?
Yes, O'Neill Cruz. He was second.
Who was?
Second. He's second fastest.
O'Neill Cruz is second.
Second fastest bat speed in baseball.
And what is that speed?
How
roughly
fast their average swing is.
Yeah.
So his is 77.9 miles per hour.
About
the top. Yeah, these top 5.
How about Judge?
Aaron Judge is number 1. Or sorry, number 3.
But
Soto?
He's top 3. Not Soto. Soto's top 10.
Julio Rodriguez.
Not Julio Rodriguez. Not top 5. Maybe, I don't know.
How about Shohei?
Nope, not Ohtani. Ohtani's
Schwarber.
16th. Schwarber's top 5, but he is not number 1.
Harper?
4th. Not Harper.
I don't know. Yordan Alvarez.
Not Yordan Alvarez. It's weird. So I was going to ask you the slowest average bat speed in a second, and these two, and it like kind of makes a lot of sense. Like they're both the polar opposite ends of like what they do, and it kind of makes a lot of sense with how fast their swings are.
Polar opposite ends of what they
like they're
do.
both decent hitters. Like,
but one's a home run hitter and one's a average hitter. Christ.
Ronald Acuna runs out the top 5 and wasn't sure if he
thanks.
did. But
thanks.
Just because he's not going to qualify in about a week or two. So
okay.
At the moment, he's top 5.
And we said Judge.
You said O'Neill Cruz, Kyle Schwarber.
What league is he in?
It's not.
He's in the American League.
It's not Joey Gallo.
Joey Gallo. Let's see what Joey Gallo
is. The American League. Is it Stanton?
It is Giancarlo Stanton.
Okay.
80 miles. So he's a full.
So now someone who's in.
Like 3 miles almost per hour faster than O'Neill Cruz at 80.6.
How about somebody that makes contact more often?
Correct. So who would have the So who would have the slowest average bat speed then?
And this is someone who's a contact hitter. This is someone who's Arias.
Yep, Luis Arias. Arias is number 1, and then I won't ask you guys guess. But Nicky Lopez, Justin Turner, Nolan Shanuel, and Bryce Terang of Milwaukee. Those are the 5 slowest bat speeds.
Wow.
Okay.
On the season. But yeah, Luis Arias clear far and away, like because they have the entire like graph of like average bat speed, and so the Luis Arias is like up here in like the top corner of like his bat speed is slow, but he squares up the ball a lot. So he's like all the way up here. No one else is even close to him, and then Stanton's the opposite end where his bat speed's really high, and he doesn't square up the ball.
Doesn't square up the ball too often. And who was number 1 again?
For fastest bat.
Fastest.
Stanton.
Stanton.
And then Gunnar Henderson on the Orioles.
The Orioles, by the way, just announced that their games next Saturday and Sunday are sold out. And I was like, wow, that's a big deal. Then I remembered it's the Phillies, and there's probably going to be a good number of Phillies fans in town next weekend, too. So be prepared for that. All right, it's time for us to get tubular. We talked about this yesterday. Griffin.
There is a place.
No, not defending, getting better, solving the problem. That's no.
What can I pitch?
We can talk about that afterwards. We can have conversations about it, but we have to solve it moving forward.
There is a place where tradition, family, and community gather, where the aspirations of talented young competitors takes root, and where the crossroads of history, culture, and renewal come together. This spring, experience America's newest and most innovative ballpark, Meritus Park in Hagerstown, Maryland, home of the Atlantic League Flying Boxcars. Plan your getaway today. You're welcome in Hagerstown, Maryland.
All right, here's what's coming up this weekend, totally tubular-wise. Orioles and Rays. Again, we only know Cole Irvin tonight against Aaron Savale. That's at 6:50 on MASN 2. Tomorrow at 4:10, somebody's facing Taj Bradley, and Sunday at 1:40, someone's facing Zach Littell. Sunday's game is also
TBA, right?
Right, correct. TBA is going.
Busy weekend.
Sunday's game is also on MLB Network in the rest of the country. French Open men's semifinals. Carlos Alcaraz has stormed back, won the 4th, and is up a break in the 5th against Jannik Sinner. That's on Tennis Channel and NBC. Coming up later on, it'll be Alex Zverev taking on Casper Ruud. The finals this weekend.
Who's going to win that one, too? Is there any value? Because Ruud is he like even money?
Zverev's winning.
So maybe you wouldn't bet on Zverev.
I wouldn't either. Tomorrow, the women's final, 9 a.m., Iga Swiatek against Jasmine Paolini. And then on Sunday, the men's final, 9 a.m.
What is this that? She's like the shortest
Paolini?
player to like ever make a final?
It's crazy. But yeah, both those are on NBC. Also this weekend, what else matters? The Whip Snakes. Against
Prime
the
time, Saturday night.
Boston Cannons tomorrow at 5, actually, on ESPN, too. Yeah. What else? Belmont tomorrow. Coverage starts at 4 o'clock on Fox. The race is around 6:30.
How many horses are running?
It's a big field. It's a real field for the Belmont. It's at Saratoga this year. It's not at Belmont Park. They're running it at Saratoga because they're doing reconstruction of Belmont Park, and there are 10 horses in the field for the Belmont, including one that was bred in Maryland named Mindframe. So a local horse, although none of the connections are local, but the horse was bred in Maryland. Mindframe is running. Mystic Dan running in the Belmont. Seize the Gray running in the Belmont. So Dornock is running in the Belmont. It's a good field. Sierra Leone's running in the Belmont. Good field for the Belmont Stakes. All right. What else was going on this weekend? I don't know. Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final tomorrow night. Oilers-Panthers at 8 o'clock on ABC. Game 2 of the NBA Finals, Sunday night, 8 o'clock on ABC between the Mavericks and Celtics. Everything else, go to GlennClarkRadio.com and find it there. Anything non-sports-wise that stands out?
The 51st Annual Daytime Emmy Awards are tonight on CBS. Hosted by
stands out. No one cares about the Daytime Emmy Awards. Stands out.
Kate Hudson will be on Fallon tonight. She's doing she's starting a music career.
It's okay to just say no.
Becoming Karl Lagerfeld, a series on Hulu, where it's like I don't know why there's like all these like fashion series are like coming out, but it's about Lagerfeld and Saint Laurent and their fashion rivalry.
Sure.
And it's like Daniel Bruhl is Karl Lagerfeld though. I like Daniel Bruhl. It's all in like French or Italian though or something. I don't know which language it was. Maybe it goes back and forth between.
It's still an option to say nothing.
There is one thing. There's two things actually. Tomorrow, Love Island UK season 11 premiere on Hulu. That is a big deal. Everyone loves Love Island.
I have a headache.
And then on Netflix today is the movie premiere of Hitman. And for lack of a better expression, I think this is gonna be a hitman. Like this, Glenn Powell plays a fake hitman, and he apparently was inspired by a true story. I'm not sure. I guess they'll go into that one. But he essentially just kind of threatens people and like plays different characters and is like I'm a hitman or something, and then that supposedly works, I guess.
Okay.
Until he starts falling in love with Adria Arjona, who is Jason Momoa's girlfriend, for anyone that doesn't know. And then somehow her, like the guy that he was threatening in her life, ends up dead anyway, and he's like, "Whoa, I didn't do it." And then it's like, and then
tell you what, report back to me, okay?
It's Glenn Powell. It's gonna be good.
I like Glenn Powell. Report back.
It's like direct. I think it was written and directed by Richard Linklater, who also did.
He
School
did
of Rock.
Right.
Yes. So
report back to me.
It's gonna be a hitman.
Just report back to me. Okay?
Hitman will be a hitman.
Right, very good.
I promise.
So nothing then. All right, that's it.
Yeah, MILF Manor on Sunday night.
Oh, can't miss that. Can't miss MILF Manor. Stan, you've been really invested in this season of MILF Manor, right?
In Milk Manor?
MILF Manor. MILF Manor.
MILF Manor.
Yeah, you've been very invested.
I've been busy
in that.
watching the wives of some city.
I was at the Let's Go Music Festival in Annapolis last weekend, seeing Bush, and at one point, because we were up close in the pit, like a security person came through and like kind of shoved everybody out of the way with a bartender behind the security person with a tray of drinks for this specific group of women. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. Like, how did that happen? And somebody said, they're on that Real Housewives show. And I was like, oh, which one?
Potomac, I guess?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
They were. I don't know who any of them are. I don't know anything about those shows.
You don't
but
know.
Apparently they were at the Let's Go Music Festival in Annapolis last Saturday. I know Juan Dixon's ex-wife was on one of those shows. But that's the only one that I know.
So Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet are split.
No longer together. Maybe she'll go back to Lenny Kravitz. Maybe that'll be the case.
That's
You don't
really
know
sad.
Giselle Bryant?
No, I don't know anyone involved.
Ashley Darby?
Griffin, you could name names for 6 hours. I wouldn't know.
You would
one of
recognize
them.
Robin Dixon.
Yeah, that's the one. I just said that. Juan Dixon's ex-wife. I just said that.
Yeah, but you knew she was there.
Yes,
Okay.
Griffin, I said that 30 seconds
I
ago.
know, but you were like,
I
don't know any of them.
I except for Juan Dixon's ex-wife is what I said. Oh God, I don't know what just happened here. I think I'm having a stroke. We gotta go. Stan, thanks for coming in. Monday, Stan, Ross, and Luke will be back in action. Check that out. Oh my, at Stan the Fan on Twitter. Thanks today to Brian Anderson, Brian Baldinger, Todd Newton from Wolverhampton Wanderers. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. All right, thanks everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Visit Hagerstown in Washington County, Cruise Maryland, Guilford Hall Brewery, Royal Farms, Ed Block Courage Awards, HelpMyGamblingProblem.org, the Costa Sin, MSAA, the Baltimore Orioles, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin, I think, at Griffin_Bass. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, at Glenn Clark Radio. I'll see you Sunday at noon on 105.7 The Fan. Have a great weekend. Go Birds. Go Whip Snakes. Duke sucks.